Okay, Melody, everyone's in the meeting and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the March 21st Town of Rhinebeck Planning Board meeting. We have a quorum, so I think we're good to go ahead with the business session. I have no changes to the posted meeting agenda. Is there any that anyone else knows of? Okay. All right, then we'll proceed with the agenda as it was posted. I think you've all had a chance to receive and review Jim's meeting notes. If you have, I would entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved, Edna.
Thank you, Edna. Second, please.
Second, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. The meeting notes are approved. Have you all had a chance to look at the March 7th minutes? Is there anyone who wishes to make any corrections, additions? All right, then I would entertain a motion to accept and approve the March 7th minutes.
So
So
moved, Edna.
moved, Sean.
Motion Sean, second Edna. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Correspondence and announcements. I do not have any. Jim, Michael, anybody else?
No. I don't have anything.
Okay, then we can move right into the new applications portion of the meeting. First before us this evening is Stephen and Tammy Kirschon, 105 Daisy Lane, site plan and special use permit, changing a primary and accessory dwellings. So who is here representing the Kirschons?
Hi, this is Zach from KDA. We're the
Hello, Zach.
hi, we're the
Hi.
architect.
Great, Zach. So why don't you let us know what you're interested in doing?
Absolutely. So I had a nice pre-conference meeting a little while ago. Basically we're asking for a special use permit for an accessory dwelling unit. That's pretty straightforward. The part that may not be so straightforward is that we are building and we have a building permit and are in the process of building the guest house itself that we are seeing on these drawings. So that will become the accessory dwelling unit, and we are going to build the main house. So I don't know if everybody followed that. It's a little kind of like a shuffle game, but here, the bottom left rectangle, actually that last plan you're just on, one more down. Yeah, that bottom left rectangle is the building that's being constructed now, that we had permitted, and essentially the top right portion of the larger structure is what we will be building in the near future. So that will be our primary dwelling unit on the right, obviously, and then the secondary will be on the left, and that's what we're asking for a special use permit for. And that's pretty much it. That's I don't know if you want me to go into any more detail, but that's the gist of it.
All right, let's go to Jim. Jim, do you want to introduce your comments at this time?
Sure. So Zach, I have a couple of questions and comments, and you'll get a copy of these, after the meeting tomorrow, so you'll be able to see these. Don't necessarily have to write them down. And we discussed a number of these at the pre-conference meeting, but I'm just going to bring them up again.
Yep.
The first one is just making sure you have any required approvals from the ISDOT for the entry onto the road. I know it exists now, but you are adding a new house there, so make sure you have any needed permits if there are any. And related to that, I think the town highway department should take a look at what's proposed for the end of the driveway there. I think when I looked at it on Google, it looked like it was mostly dirt, and there's supposed to be a concrete apron as you approach, a main road. So I think we discussed that one at the pre-con as well. Just making sure that those are consistent with town code, and you have any permits you needed.
So to be clear, we're talking about the beginning, the front of the basically our property was part of a larger subdivision.
Right.
Right. And then that subdivision has multiple homes coming off of a shared use drive. And we're talking about the front of that shared use drive.
Right, we're talking about the area that meets up with 308, right?
Right.
Yeah, with 308. I know we discussed this before that you're one of several properties, but it is a shared driveway.
Now,
And we do need to
those-
make sure.
Have any of those properties been in front of the board to your knowledge? I'm just wondering because maybe they have already submitted some of that information and been through the same road, down the same road. No,
Well, yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the condition of that and making sure you've got proper access to the road, because you're in front of us now. I've been with the board 3 years. I don't think we've seen anything for those flag lots as far as I can remember. And Michael Melody, I think, are shaking their heads no, so they haven't. Right. So we just, because you're in front of us, we just need to make sure that you're meeting the code requirements. So make sure you meet the town code requirements for the apron on the edge of the road, and just make sure you're okay with DOT as we would have
Got
any
it.
applicants going onto a DOT road, even though you are further back in there and you're one of many. We need to make sure you're meeting the code requirements and any DOT permit requirements, if there are any.
got it. So DOT permits, I will get that information. That information I'm going to get directly from the county.
From New York State, you'd have to talk to New York State DOT, the regional office.
Got it.
And I don't know if you'll need one. You just need to confirm you don't, because if you don't want to start doing all this and then find out you have a problem with it, getting your entrance onto the state road, because there's nowhere else for you to go. So
Fair enough.
make
And
sure
the
you've got
town,
approval from the state.
the town highway department that I am getting sorted out. How do you have any recommendations?
I think you can just reach out to Bob Wyatt with the plans, and you're going to make sure that they're okay with him, unless I'm mistaken, Michael or Melody. I just think he should take a look and make sure that this access, makes sense to him from the town code standards. It is a shared driveway. But I think he should just take a look and make sure he's okay with it.
Great. No problem. All right. Sorry to interrupt, Jim. Just want to make sure I
No
understand the
problem.
next steps.
So most of my questions moving forward now are kind of clarification questions, and maybe we come back and we discuss these at the public hearing. The first one relates to kind of what exists on the property today. I believe we've already started construction on the site, right? So what you're
Correct.
showing here is an existing site plan, shows that there's actually nothing on the site, but I think we're actually at the point now where there is something constructed on the site. So, this is the way the lot was, and I get that, but I do think
Yeah.
because it's in front of the board today, with the cottage, I guess, being built first, there should be a sheet showing that element that exists, or that's kind of been, it's gotten the building permit or whatever as part of this. You'd almost have 3 phases here. You'd have the undeveloped site, existing site plan, which will show kind of whatever's going on there today, and then the proposed full build out, which you do have.
Fair
But I
enough.
do
Got
think
it.
that the plans need that clarification, that there is stuff underway already, that this didn't go from undeveloped to kind of the proposed site plan all at once in front of the planning board.
That's fair. I agree. Awesome.
And that can be another sheet or added on this sheet, just something that clarifies that.
Got it. It's just a phasing plan, essentially.
Well, I wouldn't call it a phasing plan, but yeah, whatever you want.
Well,
Got
I think
it.
the, I think the
Previously
I mean, I guess it is.
the point
guess it
that
is
Jim's
kind of a phasing
making
plan
is
in a way.
the existing site plan is not vacant. So that
Understood.
is
So what-
misleading.
Right. So if someone goes back in the file in a couple of years and they're going to say, well, the planning board only approved, part of this, it's because that was all we were reviewing. We want the plans to be consistent with the application files and all that stuff.
Fair enough.
And again, you'll get these notes from me, tomorrow. So my next comment or question was on this existing site plan sheet, you're showing an underground electric line. I know we discussed this at the pre-con, an underground electric line is and a transformer in the driveway. Those are shown on the existing site plan, but when we get to the proposed site plan and your other sheets behind it, it's not shown. And I'm just kind of curious what's going on with that. Is that there? Is there an easement that goes along with that, or what's happening with that infrastructure that's on the site? I haven't been out to the site, but it's shown on the existing site plan and then it disappears on the proposed site plan. So I just want to be clear that we know what's going on.
Got it. We'll clarify electrical service.
If there's an easement, we need to know what that easement is, how wide it is, things like that. Because there's obviously, assuming that the existing conditions plan is accurate, there's something in the ground there. And then that kind of leads me into my next comment, which is that if that electrical line is still in the ground, depending on what it is, if it's active or it's, a major line. The house appears to be proposed to be a couple feet off the edge of that line. And I'm just concerned about the ability to put this in with the foundation, because you're probably gonna have to dig out further than the foundation walls themselves. If that's an electrical line in the ground, we need to make sure you're not going to disturb that for the purposes of putting the house in. And the same goes with the well. The well is actually proposed to be pretty close to where that electrical line is. So again, just a number of questions related to that supposed utility that's shown on the existing plan. Making sure that, whatever work you're going to do is going to be clear of that and there are no issues there.
Got it. Understood.
I had one comment about the planning schedule. You can take a look at that when you get the notes. We don't have to cover that one. So the two other issues that I did find that again may need some clarification. On the plan that you have before the planning board, you show, kind of where the proposed or where the leach field is going to be, where the expansion is going to be, and where the proposed septic tank is going to be. When I compared that to the set of plans that you have approved with the Department of Health, they don't match up. The leach field and leach field expansion are in the same place, but the septic tank is not and the well is not. I don't have enough background in this, and Michael, maybe you'll be able to help clarify it. I don't know if that's going to be an issue with the county or not, but I'm thinking that the county will want to review these plans since the septic tank and the well are in different locations that are what I saw on the approved plan.
I'll give Dave a call tomorrow and ask him. They would definitely want to know if it's a change. They want to know because they want it accurate on the papers that they keep down at the Board of Health, that they know where things are. And that's the only way they're going to know.
So Zach, I can show you. So right here, you've got the proposed septic tank right out in front of the house here.
Yep.
And the well kind of off the backside. But when you look at the Department of Health plans, it's not the same. The well kind of is over here and this is here, and the house and the driveway are all different. So
Sure.
things have changed between the two plans, and we just want to make sure that before you go forward with any of this, that's all okay with county health before you get too far down the road.
Yeah,
Since
I mean,
things
obviously-
appear to have changed a bit.
Sure. Yeah. That's reasonable. Of course, it changed as it was developed. The DOH approval came early on, and then we worked with our clients to keep it within the footprint, which I think diagrammatically we did fairly well. So let me get a revised. Essentially, what I'm hearing is I need to get some kind of revision to my DOH approval that matches what we are submitting in front of the board. That's what's.
I think you need to confirm with the county health department, that the plans are still okay. You don't need any reapprovals, or that they can stamp this one, whatever it may be. Just like I say, I saw an inconsistency. We want to make sure they're consistent and that you're okay with county health moving forward.
Fair enough. So just a quick memo could do it, maybe. If I can
Reach
get
out
that
to
from them.
reach out to
Yeah, I'll
Dave
talk to them.
and
You don't have.
and-
Yeah, I got you.
whatever, get something in writing for the planning board. That would be great.
And I'm calling Dave
Pearson.
Pearson. Oh, I've met. Yeah, I know Dave. Okay, great. Thank you.
He does the reviews for the town. And then my final comment that I wanted to mention tonight is that you do have approval, assuming everything, kind of goes from the one set of plans to the other with Dave Pearson and County Health. You have approval for 4 bedrooms. You are showing 4 bedrooms, but you do also show an office on the plans right over here by, I assume, the stairwell and the pantry. In the town of Rhinebeck, we actually revised the code last year, or the year before, where the planning board can assess rooms such as offices or dens or other things to determine whether or not they think that it could be a bedroom, and if so, determine that should be utilized as a bedroom or considered a bedroom. So I just want to bring it up with the planning board that there is an office proposed. It is right here. As far as I can tell, they do meet the 4-bedroom requirement as long as we do consider that an office. But wanted to bring it to your attention that there is another room proposed here for your discussion and determination whether or not you think it is an office, or if you think it could conceivably be a bedroom and should be treated as such. And those are my comments. And again, Zach, you'll get a copy of this, so you'll have that in the next day or two.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
That's what I have,
Thanks,
Melody.
Jim. Thank you, Jim. Planning board members, do you have any questions you'd like to pose to Zach tonight?
Some questions.
Sure, Adna.
How far along is the guest quarters?
I'd say at this point about, let's use the 80-20 rule. Let's say it's 80% complete.
And you have a building permit for it, so the building permit must have been granted for a primary dwelling because
Correct.
it was, okay. And what is the timing on the building of the actual primary dwelling?
We hope to keep the same, we have the same, it's the same contractor. And we hope to keep him mobilized on site. So let's say that, you know, depending on how, it really depends, I think, on how quickly we can get through this process. But let's say that it takes us 3 months worst case, or I don't want to speak for the board, but of course, I'm just doing some math here. Then that puts us at, you know, maybe starting, let's call it July 1st.
You're saying you think that there would be a start of construction of the primary dwelling on July 1st? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, immediately, essentially immediately after planning board approval for the special use permit, we'll start getting our ducks in a row to break ground. Actually concurrently. So yeah, I'm saying it really depends on the planning board timeline, but given if I just plug in 3 months of planning board time, then I could theoretically be breaking ground July 1st.
So this issue has come before the planning board before, the idea of building an accessory dwelling before there's anything for it to be an accessory to. The concern obviously is what happens if the actual primary dwelling is not built. And that may sound like a strange idea, but on the other hand, it has happened right next to me.
Sure.
So I asked the planning board, Melody and Jim and maybe Michael, what is the policy regarding this?
And there's no specific policy. Basically, the process as it goes forward doesn't violate any regulations that we have. You're right. I mean, it's always a possibility. There's another one I know of that the accessory dwelling unit was built and then the people, I think, sold the property. The primary was never built, which just means you can have a very small accessory structure on this property with a fairly large septic system. And at some point down the road, someone else then might come in and choose to put in a larger structure to become the primary structure. But there's really nothing in our zoning law that prevents this from going forward or that requires the person to go ahead and build a primary structure, since the initial application is for the accessory structure to be a primary structure built on the property. And we haven't reviewed or approved the other structure, which is now before us tonight.
Another question, there is a roof between the two buildings, right?
Yeah, the porte cochere.
Does that then make it one building?
Well, it may or may not. I can definitely figure that out from multiple viewpoints. I could find out from, you know, a building code standpoint, or from a town code standpoint. I guess then my question would be, does that affect our special use permit in any way? Was not an item that came up in our workshop.
It's an interesting question. If, for example, the accessory structure there were a garage, we consider it a detached accessory structure because that's what garages are considered, whether they're attached or not. So it's been a very gray area. I don't think there's any definitive answer one way or the other. I think something like a breezeway or something like that in the past has not been treated as the structure to which it goes from the main structure to the accessory structure, to make the accessory structure part of the primary structure. It's that's at least been the policy in the past.
Right.
If it becomes one building, does it change the bedroom count?
No. Bedroom count would be the same. Whatever bedroom counts in a primary structure and accessory dwelling units on the property, it's the total bedroom count of all those roof structures that determines the size of the septic system.
Okay, so he'd be fine there.
I think what it could change is if you consider that it's one building, then they actually are beginning work on the primary dwelling, and they're just starting at one end where the accessory dwelling will be.
Right, Edna, but I think, I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was just gonna say, but that's not the building permit that was issued. It was issued strictly for the accessory structure. And there were no conditions placed upon that, that at some future time, there would be additional construction on the property.
Oh, I thought that the building permit was issued for a primary dwelling.
It is. It was.
Right. But
But
if
the,
you're
the
building,
primary dwelling is the smaller unit. I can help. I mean, I can help provide some context. I hear everybody's wheels turning. The reason we did it this way, and it was really a gamble when it comes to construction costs and the inflations we were experiencing from COVID. And we saw construction costs spike, and we had a client that, you know, had a certain budget and needed to basically move residences. So that's why we put this ahead, the smaller building, so that we could minimize those inflation costs. Of course, to find out, you know, all of our wisdom, it's not getting very much cheaper out here for many global reasons. And so we just, you know, made the decision that, you know, now's the time to build the entire thing. So I hope that helps, that it was always meant to be built at the same time and was never meant to be built in parts. So I almost encourage the board to look at it as just, you know, one continuous thing. Like if I was here today and nothing was being built on site, because I feel like it gets kind of confusing when we try to like parse those two things together, besides of course what Jim's asking for, which is totally reasonable, adding the kind of permitted site plan to this. I don't know if that helps at all, but
It does. And Edna, you know, the way we've treated these, you know, we're gonna have another one again later tonight, is that they are accessory structures, you know, even with the breezeway. We've had a garage that got attached by a breezeway. It was a detached garage. We put a breezeway to it. That was still considered an accessory structure. As Michael said, even a garage attached to the house, by the way the code is written, like it or not, is considered an accessory structure. So accessory garage, accessory residential unit, that's just kind of the way the code is written. We've been trying to work on that, making a revision. It just hasn't happened. But that's what we have to work with.
okay,
Anyone else from the planning board? Okay, Jim, I think we have a procedural resolution.
if I could just jump in. I have one question for the planning board before we get out, and then let me know if I should hold this question, the other questions I have. One of them is, I heard Jim's comment on the office on the floor plan. Can I get a kind of a temperature from the board of how we're feeling about that? I can attest that, you know, it is definitely the intent of the client to use that room as an office. I think first and foremost shown by the lack of a closet and its location on the floor plan. If we flip down one page. So I would like to kind of get some kind of, you know, I'll put my stuff on the meeting minutes if I can get some kind of indication on whether that might be an issue. I don't want it coming up, I guess, next week or next meeting being like a critical issue to our floor plan.
Right. So it didn't, you know, from my perspective, it didn't catch my eyes. Hey, that's absolutely a bedroom. You know, like you said, there's no closet. There are windows in the door. It's right next to the stairs. But just given what it is and given the definition and the discussions we've had in the past, I did have to raise this as a consideration for the board.
Jim, what is the space below that says Murphy bed? That too is an office, but it's suggesting that there's a Murphy bed in there.
Correct. And that would be in the bedroom count. I did look at that one. That would be part of the bedroom count. If I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. There were 3 bedrooms, one in the, I think Zach, you can correct me if I'm wrong. There's one in the accessory dwelling. There's
Yeah, if
one
we just-
big bedroom
we just
here,
zoom
the
out a
office,
tad.
which is another one. 2. Okay.
Yeah, just zoom out a tad and I can show you where they are.
Yeah. Got one here.
Yep, that's the master, or the primary. And then the one you counted, yep, that guest bedroom. And then you have the one in the, yep, exactly. And then absolutely, that office was meant to be a swing space for a bedroom. So we're already showing that we will have one office that will be used and is intended to be used occasionally as a bedroom. So, I guess the argument is, why would we need a second office? We're already kind of showing our cards here.
Well, I guess the argument is if you're calling one room with a Murphy bed an office and another room called an office, I think I'd begin to look for different language because, you're already calling the one office a transitional bedroom office. So it leads one to believe you could do the same thing in the other office.
Sure. I'll refer back to any language that the board would like us to use. I know that, and I actually appreciate this is coming up because it's a long fought battle we've had with the DOH. I've been working and doing this a long time, and it's always been a question. So I still would like to add offices, without them having to count with bedroom for bedroom. I think that may be the intent of DOH and the intent of the code, but I guess it's a principal line, but I guess are all offices considered bedrooms?
I think from my perspective, you're correct. There's no closet, there's no bathroom, but we have to think to the future. Because this owner does not intend to use them as bedrooms, we have to ask ourselves, could they in the future be used as bedrooms? And if so, is everything sized appropriately? So that's one of the questions we ask ourselves.
Also, there's no bathroom and there's no closet in the office with the Murphy bed.
Right.
Jim, can you draw this back so we can see the whole floor plan a little bit? Yeah, thank you. Is the septic system in place already?
It is underway. Using the DOH approvals we have. So we did install a 4-bedroom system, or are in the midst of it, as part of the permit we currently have for construction.
Could it be expanded?
Of course, but not without considerable construction and soft costs to our client.
Well, Zach, we're not here to tell you. We're just here to raise the questions. And I think you need to speak to your client and decide how they really intend to use these rooms, and then you need to name them appropriately.
Fair enough. So what I'll do is I'll relabel the bottom left office to bedroom 3. Guest bedroom will be bedroom 2. Principal will leave as principal. And then the guest bedroom I'll label as bedroom 4. That will clearly show 4 bedrooms on the plan plus an office. Does that sound like a good plan for the board?
That's between you and your client.
Oh, I can speak
then-
for them. I can speak for their intent. I've been in design meetings with them from the very beginning.
Okay.
I can assure the board that is their intent, and that's why I thought we were being fairly fairly open by showing that one of these offices, we're only actually proposing 3 bedrooms with a swing office. So that's the 4th bedroom.
Okay. Anyone else?
It's a difficult situation, and part of the definition of bedroom also speaks to access, emergency exit, whatever. Is the window here similar in terms of construction and size and whatnot as the one in the office with the Murphy bed, for example? And in terms of ceiling height, ventilation, those are the different building code requirements for bedrooms. And if they're identical, then it does make it, once again, just a little bit more of a, given our definition and then in the building code definition, a little more difficult to sort the two out. But from this, obviously, I can't tell if, you know, those construction details are similar between the two.
Yeah, I hear you. I think to, you know, we think about things very, very architecturally very creative. So I could definitely see us making an office with a very large window for somebody to look out because that's what a client request is. Not sure how to, if I can't speak towards my client's intent, number one, then, and if I can't, and then I guess the suggestion I'm hearing is to cripple the office, so to speak, so that it could not be legally used as a bedroom.
That's about right, yeah.
Yeah.
The way the law is written and the code that we're more or less guided by from definitions and the building code that the town building inspector also employs.
Sure. I just wonder, I guess we've talked this to death. I'm just wanting, you know, whatever you as the board can give us for leeway here. I'll ask that. And then, you know, otherwise we're going to have to figure out, some substantial changes to what we're submitting here.
All right, we're in the resolution that I'm about to ask for, we'll be assigning people to come on a site visit. So let's leave it at when they get in the field with you, you can have spoken with your clients and perhaps have a fuller discussion of this in the field. Does that work?
Yeah, and I'd also offer for them to send a letter of intent. I don't know if that would help the board make a decision on this. Keep that in the record.
As I said before, we're not just dealing with the people who live here now, we're dealing with how it's being built and how it could be used in the future.
Okay,
All
so a letter of intent, no good. Okay, got it.
Does anybody have the exact definition handy just to read it? Michael, you were speaking about it.
I don't have it right in front of me now, Jim. You probably have the definition.
I'm gonna have to pull it up. You have to give me a second. You're looking for the definition of what, a bedroom?
Bedroom,
Yeah.
a bedroom.
Okay, the definition of a bedroom is the portion of a residential dwelling unit. Actually, no, what I can pull it up on the screen. Why don't I do that so everybody can see enough to hear me talk? Something to look at here. Oops, too big. Definition of bedroom is the portion of residential dwelling unit designed to be suitable for sleeping purposes, which may contain closets, may have access to a bathroom, and meets the uniform building code requirements for room size, light, and ventilation. The rest of the definition gets into how it is at the discretion of the planning board to decide if something is a bedroom, whether that be a den, library, study, loft, or room designated on a building plan, and whether that could be habitable or not. So again, that's where this came from and why I brought it up.
And the point, one of the points being made that this may contain closets, may have access. It's not required to be defined as a bedroom.
Correct.
Correct. It's at the discretion of the board to decide if you think it may or may not be or could not be.
Well, it says it shall be considered a bedroom.
If the planning board determines it to be as such, yes.
If the planning board has determined that a den, blah, blah, designated on building plan submittals has been determined to be habitable,
Correct.
which means determined to be usable as a bedroom, I guess.
Yes. And my point, Edna, was that it is not required to have a closet and a bathroom to be considered a bedroom.
Right. Is this something that's made clear when people come in for, you know, pre-conference meetings and building permits and whatever?
We do try to, yes. We do try
When we,
to.
yeah, when we see it, we do try to discuss this, absolutely.
All right, we have a lot of business tonight, so unless there's something pressing that hasn't been explored, I'd like to be able to move to the procedural resolution. Is everybody okay? I don't want to cut anybody off.
I'm good.
Everybody else all right?
Also,
Okay, Jim, let's just quickly go through this.
So it's a procedure resolution to accept the application and supporting documents for further review by the planning board, advisors, and the public. We'll classify this as a type 2 action under seeker. Gretchen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we'll schedule this for April 18th,
Yes.
2022 at 6:15 PM. And then we need to delegate 2 planning board members to do a site visit. It will also go to the CAB and Dutchess County for planning for review. And as the applicant's been notified, to reach out to county health for those discussions as well as DOT.
Would like to make a site visit.
Melody, I'll do it.
Edna? Anyone else?
I can
I'll
go.
go. Oh, who was that, Joe?
Yep.
Okay, Joe, you beat me. You're on. Okay, could I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved.
Second,
Michael, second. Edna, all those in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? The motion carries. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Edna and Joe will see you in the field.
thank you.
Okay, the second new application this evening is Vonderleith, 410 White Schoolhouse Road, site plan and special use permit. This is a renewal of a mining and reclamation permit. Who is here this evening?
Mark Verminsky representing JD Vonderleith and Sons.
Hello, Mark.
Hello.
Want to
Oh,
present your
sorry.
application?
Yes. Good evening. Mark Verminsky representing JD Vonderleith and Sons. This is a application for special permit as required under the Town of Rhinebeck zoning code, and has been actually the one change to this application is it runs concurrent with the mining permit application that's been issued by the New York State DEC, which is renewable every 5 years. So every 5 years, this property has been in front of the planning board for a special permit application. It is, as I said before, it's in the mining overlay district. It's also RC5 zoning district. The total property size is 74.633 acres. Access is off of White Schoolhouse Road. And this plan that is in front of the board has also been the plan that and other applications that have been submitted to New York State DEC and have been accepted as complete. And so now we are just awaiting, it's just a determination from DEC as far as mine land reclamation for the property. There have been no changes to this particular site in the last 5 years. So this plan is nearly identical to the plan that was submitted 5 years ago to the board. Vonderleith they also have are operating another soil mine to the north on White Schoolhouse Road. It's the Lobotsky soil mine, and so all material from the Lobotsky soil mine is either excavated directly and trucked to a project site, or it is trucked to this site for processing, which has been the case for the last 5 years. And actually, the previous term before that is the same. So on this plan, I have, photographs of the existing property and, the various limits related to the mining plan as required by DEC are also shown on this plan. The one, I just know one change that occurred in the past 5 years was an application for minor subdivision on the northern portion of the property. And you can see that there's that division line. And so on the, let's see, it would be on, lot number 1A is the existing residence of Matthew Vanderleef. And then on lot number 1B, I also show a house right near the mining limits that's currently under construction for occupation by Richard Vanderleef. That's the only change to the site.
Thank you, Mark. Jim,
Okay, so just wanted to, I provided a number of comments in my memo for planning board members, just as it relates to mine land reclamation law, policies of the state, a reminder that the DEC controls permitting as it relates to the mine itself, that the things that we're looking at here at the planning board are what's in 12568 FF. And we all know that because we are reviewing another mine in the area. So we've started these discussions recently. I wanted to let you know I am working with the town planning board attorney to determine the appropriate seeker classification. We don't believe it'll be a type 1. It'll either be type 2 or unlisted. Probably be consistent with what's been done in the past. And I have done some research since putting this memo together, as well as when I was putting the memo together, that, I think a lot of what we'll be doing will be consistent with, or we'll be looking at whether or not, how we're consistent with what's been done in the past. There is a precedent for these mine renewal permits, which I have not been part of and involved in with the town before I started working with the town, but I have pulled that paperwork. So really we're looking at, similar things that we have discussed before as it comes out of that portion of the code, traffic, mineral transport, types of trucks, environmental studies, things like that. Although this is, an existing mine that's looking for a renewal permit. So it is a different situation, I think, than what we have up the road. And I put a couple comments in here about whether the planning board should see if a traffic study or a habitat study may be necessary, things like that. Again, I think we may go to previous precedent for that. And I'm going to work with John Lyons again to just kind of discuss those items and kind of see where we fall. And so I'll have that information for you for the public hearing. Beyond that, we may or may not want to forward these to the town engineering consultant for review. I don't know, again, what's been done in the past. So I just kind of put that out there. And yeah, a lot of it will relate to kind of what I determine you think makes sense with, in my discussions with John. So at the moment, I don't have a whole lot to really say other than I need to kind of look into some of the historic precedent of how the renewals have been done and come back to you with some more information for the public hearing meeting next month.
thanks, Jim.
Melody, if I may, one other item, which I forgot to mention, is I submitted a waiver request under the town's wetland ordinance. And that has been, I think, at least the previous permit application. I made that request since there is a pond on the site, and that mining and processing takes place within 100 feet of those ponds. And so, as per the last permit term, I also submitted a request for a waiver from that section of the code.
Thank you, Mark. Questions from planning board members?
How many more years are you expected to mine?
So I know that once again, so no mining has actual mining has taken place at this site over the last 5 years, just processing. And so the goal of in speaking to Vanderleef is that they look to finish mining from the Lobotsky mine over the next 5 years. And so, as you can see, there are still some areas left in this life of mine. So, prediction, certainly another 5 years and maybe 5 years past that, but, difficult to say, always depends on, need for material. But this mining limits of mine, life of mine limits have been set since, I believe, the first application was submitted in 1970. It was, it could have been, mid-70s or early 80s, but it's been quite a while since this mine's been in existence. So, I'm not answering your question directly. As far as, material available, all surface mining is basically complete. There may be approximately, 2 to 3 feet of surface mining. The remainder would be, subsurface and, extension of the ponds. But as I said, certainly for another 5 years and possibly extending another 5 years beyond that.
So processing and mining would not go on simultaneously?
They could, if they choose to.
But
They're
you're
allowed
not
to,
proposing.
do that.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not, at this time, Melody, they're not anticipating that. The goal is to finish up at the Lubotsky mine, have that, which actually is due for renewal in a couple months. So there'll be another application coming to this board. But the goal is to finish up the Lubotsky mine, reclaim it and close it as a mine.
And
One of the questions Jim asked earlier that I would, I guess, bring back for people to think about, not necessarily to discuss tonight, but, Jim asked if we should determine if a traffic study is needed. And I mean, we already know we're dealing with another mine, and Mark has just told us we'll see another application in a few months. So my initial thoughts are, I think we would be wise to look at the traffic impacts on the road in general with all of these permits that we're looking at. So that's just my own personal feedback on that. Anyone else from the planning board?
in Jim's notes, there's a mention that a reclamation plan has been submitted and the planning board might want to get a copy. I would certainly like to see a copy.
Is that
Mark,
something
is-
we could get, Mark?
Mark?
Yes.
Okay. So Mark, you will, I assume in the future be representing Lubotsky?
Yes, it's actually, Lubotsky is the owner, but Vanderleith buys it. So
Okay. All right.
I will be representing.
Okay.
Is it, with regard to the traffic study, once again, this is, it's mainly used for, works that Vanderleith's or, various projects they're working on. Obviously, they do have some, other, excavators or users at the mine with traffic generation, but this is a very low traffic generation situation. It's a small operation. I guess my only question would be is if it's deemed necessary for a traffic study, I'd rather know sooner rather than later so that I could, coordinate that for the project.
All right, we'll talk about that and get back to you.
Okay.
Melody, a
Anyone
quick question
Sure.
about that traffic study.
Yeah.
Would we look at this property as a standalone, or it sounds like this is smaller trucks that would be coming in and out of this property just from the way they're talking about the use versus the one we were talking about the last meeting. Was the traffic study take into account just the vehicles that would be coming in and out of this property and how they affect the road and the intersections, or do we take it in totality with other mines that might be on the road?
I think you're raising the important question, Joe. I mean, I don't know that you can separate them out in terms of the cumulative impact. And that's what I'm trying to think through. I mean, this may be very low impact, but when you add the others, and we've received, some of you may have seen some of the things we've received already from various entities weighing in on traffic on the road. So what my thoughts are, we have to look at them holistically, but I mean, I understand both sides of it, but I don't see how you separate them out. Traffic's traffic. Wear and tear on the road is wear and tear on the road. Hours of operation, they all, together, they all make a larger impact, obviously. That's my personal opinion, but is that what you were thinking, Joe? What were you driving at?
I'm just, I mean, this, my understanding is this is a mine that's been in operation for a number of years, whereas the other ones has been dormant. It seemed like it would be penalizing this mine to group it in with the other one that may or may not get passed. That's just my initial thought.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it is a different application. I mean, you keep in mind, this is a renewal, so it is a different level of review. But I think Melody has a really good point. I do a lot of traffic planning that, we probably look at a traffic study for this, but then you look at the traffic study for the other effort that's going on, and then you just take the general traffic into account. And you'd probably want to roll all that together and see what you get. I could probably work with CPL to come up with a summary for everybody. I think it'd be pretty easy to figure that out. But the cumulative impact of trucks and large vehicle traffic on White Schoolhouse Road is going to have an impact. I mean, it just will. And, given however many trucks are going for however many different sites, school buses, other trucks that are coming through, we know the roads at either end, have a lot of truck traffic and a lot of traffic in general. So it's definitely something to consider, Joe. But I think for this site, my guess would be that we'd ask for an individual traffic study, and then I might work with CPL to just kind of come up with some summary information. But I need to think about that a little more. Sometimes we wrap them together, but I'm not sure. It's a good point though. And it's absolutely something for the planning board to keep in mind, the cumulative impact.
Let me go back and ask Mark a question just for clarification. So if this is a renewal, right?
Correct.
The
Yes.
question I asked you earlier was, although they intend right now just to do processing, they have the right to mine simultaneously with the processing should they choose to. Is that correct?
That's correct, but that doesn't, I don't believe that'll change the truck traffic, because if they process, then the material, actually, if processing would be, it's about the same. I don't think, doing both changes the traffic that's generated from this mine.
Okay, that was the point of my question. If they decided to, up the activity, would that lead to greater truck traffic? And you're saying you don't think so.
I don't believe so. And I guess if I could ask one question is, so, obviously the other mine under consideration, well, wouldn't they already have to include the traffic that's being generated from this mine?
Yeah, they would. I mean, for the traffic study, it's the overall impact on the road. So I think.
Well, you have to choose as to whether you want them representing your traffic.
It might be a place to start, Mark, if possibly we could see over the last 5 years, representative, logs of, daily trucks in and out and size during the real, the building season, not, December, January, February, but during the building season to get an idea of exactly what the history of use has been.
Okay.
Something like that might be helpful.
All right, understood.
I guess the other thing I would mention is the conditions that we always place on mines in terms of size of trucks. It's been 10-wheel, 12 cubic yards, which also is something that the town's engineering firm has recommended, just given the fragility of White Schoolhouse Road. Hours of operation are also within the purview of the planning board as well. So I'm assuming and hoping that the planning board will once again put those conditions on any mining permit that is issued. And I think that Mr. Vonderleef's been able to live with those since they first started coming on back, at least in the 80s. I have not heard of any complaints.
Yeah, Michael, those are some of the things that I want to talk with John about, kind of history and what's been done in the past that I will provide, hopefully for board members at the next meeting. Some of those conditions specifically and which ones, we recommend continuing. I'm thinking it'll probably be consistent since we've done that for many years with renewals.
Other planning board members?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, are there any other limiting factors included either in the nature of the work that's being done or in the permit itself that would prevent, an expansion of operations should the price of gravel go up. But as Michael said, it's, that's the kind of restriction that can be put on the road. Or is there anything about the site or the layout that would act as a limiting factor?
If may I answer that question?
Yes.
Yeah, so the life of mine has been set. So, and if I understand the mining overlay ordinance correctly, it cannot be expanded. This is it. This is the original life of mine for this piece of property, and it cannot be expanded. So
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct. All set, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking more in terms of the rate at which material is pushed out of the, produced by the mine. And if, economic pressures are right, there would be an incentive to get as much out of the ground and onto the road as possible. And is there anything about the way, like the size of equipment that's being used, or the capacity of the roadway leading into and out of the site that would prohibit large tractor trailers from being pulled through, for instance?
Our regulations, as we have conditioned these in the past, do not permit tractor trailers, do not permit those dump trailers.
Right. Those are the things the planning board specifically should look at based on the code language, and has been done in the past. Again, that's why I say I'll try and pull some historical information and provide that to members.
Anyone else? All right, if there's nothing else, we can look at the draft procedural resolution.
Okay, so another procedural resolution where we'll accept the application and supporting documents for further review by the planning board, advisors, and the public. We will classify this action under seeker at the public hearing. Again, I want to clarify with John Lyons exactly how we want to do this. We will schedule the hearing for the application for April 18th. And we need 2 planning board members to attend. We'll send this to the CAB and Dutchess County as well.
I'll go, Jim.
I'll go.
Sean and Michael. Is that right? Did I hear it right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right, I could entertain a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution.
So moved, Edna.
Thank you, Edna. Second.
Second,
Second,
Craig.
Joe.
Thank you, Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, Mark.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we have Heinz Wildercliff LLC, 524 Mill Road. This is for site plan and special use permit for a garage building. Mark, are you here to
Yes, I
represent?
am. Yes, I am. I'll just wait for Jim.
Just, yep, give me a second to pull up the right PDF. We have a lot of them for tonight.
Yeah.
I had to open them in different files. There we go. Okay, Mark, I think we've got the right one up here for you.
Yes, I submitted on 2/28.
Yep.
And there should be a series of drawings, Jim? Is that
Yes,
correct?
following.
Yep, perfect. Yep, that's it. So, good evening again. So Mark Grabinski representing Chris and Laura Hines for this is a site plan amendment. The board members recall there was a previous site plan that was approved for some landscape changes and relocation of a driveway and the renovation of an existing barn located on this property. Just, for those who weren't here for the previous application, it is, this property owned by Chris and Laura Hines is located at the southwestern corner of the intersection of Mill Road and Morton Road. Morton Road is the road on the North Mill Road on the east side of the property. The total parcel size is, is 37.696 acres. And this application, as I mentioned before, is an amendment. So the site plan in front of the board this evening indicates items that were approved by the previous site plan. And then I make reference to some new items that are being proposed for this amended consideration. So I'll just, what I'd like to do is I'll do an overview of the entire site, because the second drawing behind, after this one is there's a series of landscape drawings. And so the landscape architect, Dale Schaefer, is here to describe those and express what those amendments are to the board. And so I will just note that most of those landscape changes are taking place around the location of the main residences, which is just on the south side of the circle that is located on the property. And there's, as I said, landscaping changes and some alignment changes and some additions for landscaping items. In addition to that, one of the main reasons for this amendment is to include a location of a garage that's going to be connected on the near the northeast corner of the existing barn. And I show that there's an enlargement in the right-hand corner of the site plan that shows that, but the addition of this garage is based on multiple conversations with the planning board and with HAPAC on the project too. And it's related to renovation of the existing barn. So one of the changes that's being considered that's being presented to this board is the garage, and I'll be able to get into those details as we go through our presentation for this application. I note that this garage required application to the Zoning Board of Appeals since it is located in the front yard of the principal residence. And so that application was made and actually completed. And last Wednesday, the Zoning Board of Appeals, considered this, considered it for approval of the area variance. I think right now what I'd like to do is just to go in sequence of the drawings, turn it over to Dale Schaefer, and he can take you through the landscape changes, and they're on the following sheets.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, my name is Dale Schaefer with Wagner Hodgson Landscape Architecture. And this is the drawing that you're looking at now is a master plan drawing that we provided Chris and Laura Hines to address improvements to the landscape elements of the property. There's several elements on this drawing that are actually existing, such as the barn, the tennis court, the swimming pool, and of course the house, septic, and things like that. This drawing represents more sort of the landscape elements. I guess what I'll do is I'll sort of start with the most significant ones and then sort of work back from there. As Mark mentioned, that the driveway realignment from for the overall driveway has been approved. However, this drawing shows some additional adjustments to that driveway from the sort of the very top left corner of the drawing, heading toward the house, and configuring the arrival loop to the house, which essentially treats it in a more formalized way and creates a parking area for guests and visitors as they arrive in the front of the house, and a separate parking area just to the east of that, or up sort of updrawing from that front parking area to the house, so where the owners can park there and then walk to the house through the kitchen, mudroom and kitchen. And the other improvements sort of directly around the house were to kind of formalize sort of the landscape in a way that kind of minimalized changing the landscape for the overall property, but kind of trying to keep it in a more condensed area. On the left, sort of toward the north side of the house, there's a stone wall that will act as kind of a threshold for people arriving and leaving the house, and along with some planting along it. The wall would be roughly 18 to 24 inches high. To the east of the owner's parking would be an orchard, or actually sort of an orchard-like planting of crab apples that would give a sense of an orchard that might have been located at a house of this nature historically. And then the pool area, although the pool is existing and there's been approvals for paving around the pool, the master plan shows a connection from the house, a paved connection from the back of the house to the pool area, and proposes a pool house on the east side of the pool, and then a vegetable garden on the east side of the pool house. And to assist with screening the pool house and the pool area from the road are plantings of shrubs, ornamental grasses, and yes, that's ornamental grasses and shrubs. And then on the south side of the pool is, the west side of the pool are a series of steps that will kind of extend into the sloping lawn that allow access to the lawn and open up the pool area to that side of the house. The overall landscape, where you see sort of a mix of colors, would be an informal grass meadow that would be maintained as a meadow, but the area more directly around the house, and then more in the brighter or deeper green, would be the lawn area, the area that would be maintained as lawn. The other improvements as far as planting would be, there's sort of a series of dark sort of green circles which represent some additional evergreen trees to be planted to both screen the tennis court from the driveway and from the road, and also on the sort of the south side or the right-hand side of the drawing, a few more evergreen trees that would be to screen the relocated playhouse that is currently, its relocation has also been approved by the board. So on this drawing, you'll, in the key on the lower right, there's a key that describes what each of these elements are and their sizes and general materials. And those elements that are in red are those things which are proposed to be added. Text in black are things that are either existing or previously approved. And then on the upper right of the drawing is a plant palette of plants that are intended to be used in the planting design as the more technical drawings are developed. And the intent for this, the plant palette was to keep as many natives that made sense for the property, as well as appropriate non-natives that might be historically correct, but also not invasive. So that's in addition to just sort of overall pathways sort of within the meadow. That's roughly the overall landscape master plan. And all the white that you see on the plan, the white circles are existing trees to remain.
Okay, Mark,
Okay,
so the core, well, the application before us this evening is for the garage.
The application this evening is in front of you is for the garage. It's also includes, updated information for the barn, which I'll get to after this, and then also the specific landscape items that have just been outlined by Dale. And they're shown on what he's called the master plan. The one thing I will note is that the pool house shown on the master plan is a placeholder.
Oh, that was my question. I didn't know that we were at the point of a master plan that included a pool house.
It's a placeholder. A separate application will be made to this board regarding detailed design for a pool house.
So we're being asked to consider a landscape master plan minus the pool house.
Correct.
Okay. It certainly wasn't what I was expecting, but okay. All right, go ahead.
Jim, if you could go to and just page through Dale's drawings, please.
Yeah. This next page are just some details of the pool fence and the vegetable garden fence, and the image on the lower portion of the drawing is to illustrate the steps that I mentioned that would come off the west end of the west side of the pool that would extend into the slope, and they would end into a stone wall. And this drawing, this drawing includes the vegetable fence and the detail of the stone wall that is at the both at the kind of the front of the house that runs along the front of the house that acts as the threshold to the arrival of the house, as well as the stone wall that the steps by the pool that would die into.
Okay, so Dale, I'll continue on now.
Okay.
Dale, do you have anything else to add?
Nope, unless somebody has any questions.
I'll continue through with the other details of the application. So, just back to, planning board members are aware that, considerable discussion has taken place regarding the barn. And so what drawings that are included with this amended site plan application include those, there's elevations that show the barn and garage connection. And so you can, I guess the important elevation to look at is the top elevation of this drawing that Jim has up now, because what it does is it shows it's the east elevation. It shows the west side of the existing barn with the deck and location of the doors and windows that are associated with the deck. Noting the change being the previous application had a fireplace, and that has been replaced by a window, and there'll be an interior wood stove, wood fireplace that'll be inside the building. And this elevation now shows, the stack of that, rising through the roof. I also note that this elevation shows there's two skylights that are on, both sides of that pipe for the stove. Those were added as part of the discussion for the changes being made to the barn. And then also I note that there's windows that are located. It's on the north side of the barn, and they're actually where the stable section of the barn is. And so those windows are in the same location as an existing window on that west face of the barn. The elevation below now obviously includes the garage, and I'll go through these. Jim, we can go through these elevations pretty quickly, because we also have some perspective drawings that we can also look at. So next page, please. Same thing here. This is now the west elevation, and looking at the front of the barn. That's the top portion, and also garage is located on the right hand side. Same thing is the north elevation, which is shown here, and it shows a breezeway garage on the left hand side with breezeway connection to the barn. Next page, please, Jim. Right, and so here are some renderings for the garage connection into the barn. Are obviously looking in here, coming through the driveway with the garage doors on the barn, and then showing the breezeway connection. Just a different view of that, showing the east side of the barn. Here now actually showing the north side of the garage and the barn. And the same here with just showing details of those doors on the north side of the garage. I think that sums up what I have to say, or with regard to this application.
Thank you, Mark. Jim, do you have comments?
Yeah, so I guess I can echo I think I'm echoing Melody's comment that I didn't quite understand the full extent of what was being proposed in my initial review. But that said, I do think my comments still, still remain that I don't necessarily see any planning issues with the proposal based upon the initial review. I do believe that the focus of the discussion will be on, the historic nature of the barn, the house and the property, and the introduction of not only this new garage, but those landscaping elements. The one thing I did want to mention is that you did talk about the pool house being on here. I do think, particularly for this one with so much going on, it's important to either remove the pool house or maybe put it as a dotted line or label it as future pool house with maybe a dotted line.
Okay.
It does look like it's part of this application, and we do want to make sure that we're absolutely clear on exactly what's in here.
Absolutely. It's once again had discussions with Chris and Laura, and they're just they're unsure of the design and of this, and so just wanted to let the board know that this is something that they'll be coming back in the future. And so I will the drawings will be clearly labeled to note that.
Yeah, because right now, if you look at it, even as as you said, Dale, the white trees and the white house and the existing barn is shown as white and existing. Well, the pool house is white too, and that threw me when you started
Right.
talking about it. I didn't actually catch it when I first looked at it. So when you said that,
Okay.
it kind of threw me because I'm like, I don't think it's there, and that's why I scrolled back to the previous sheet that you had, Mark, your sketch. So yeah, if we can clarify that,
That's a
that
good
would be
point.
good. Maybe even just putting just a block, just a box in there with a dotted line that says potential future
Yeah.
pool house or something to represent that, so it's not so specific.
Yeah, we can,
Okay.
we can adjust the drawings so that,
Okay.
it shows what a non-pool house and then condition would be, and then just dash in the pool house.
Yeah. So Melody, I think my comments still remain. It's, it's assessing these, new elements in the
Yeah.
historic fabric of the property.
All right, just to go back to clarify what I was saying earlier, and for others, when we have a pre-conference meeting with the applicant, we try to get on the table everything we're going to be looking at when an application comes in before the board. And we certainly had extensive conversation and information about the garage, much less so regarding the landscape. Many of the things that were presented tonight we were not made aware of in the pre-conference meeting. So that may explain a little bit of our surprise about the extent of this in terms of a landscape master plan. The other point I would make, I don't believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but where we left the stable area, that was in our last look at this, left up to discussions between HAPAC and the applicant. So I would point out that changes that you show in the elevation, changes to the windows in the stable area, are not something we can really discuss at this point because that was left to discussions with HAPAC. I think you understand that, Mark, don't you?
Yes, I do.
All right, so I just want to make it clear that at this point, that is not part of this application. That is something that has to be dealt with separately.
I don't understand. I thought it was.
You haven't had conversation. Where we left it was you were going to discuss changes to the stable area with HAPAC and come back with an agreed upon solution.
Okay, so that is part of the previous application then. Is that what you're being?
I believe that's where it is. Jim,
Okay.
can you clarify that for me?
Well, that was where it was left, certainly as a condition of the previous approval. I am trying to wrap my head around whether or not that means that approval is still hanging out there as a conditional approval that now falls into this or not. And again, I may need to get some guidance on that. I don't know, Michael, if you have thoughts on that, but we do still have that outstanding condition that I guess technically has not been met since HAPAC has not signed off on anything. So how that rolls into this is an open question for me. Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing, that HAPAC has not seen this latest iteration of the glazing in the stable area.
I can't say whether we saw that in the pre-application meeting, and I really can't remember if a representative from HAPAC was there or not, but it hasn't yet been referred to them for official review. But the point was, where we left it in the last application was the issues around the stable block, I will call it a stable block for lack of a better term, were to be discussed with HAPAC, and that they would jointly come up with a resolution that allowed us to go forward. So,
Melody,
yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt. May I just say we have not seen the bulk of this adjusted application at HAPAC, and so we would need to be consulted on that and have it sent forward to us. Okay, Mark?
Yes.
Thank you.
that is, thank you, Kathy. I'm glad you're here. That is, I know, in the draft procedural resolution that would go to you, but I just wanted to clarify, and I think you're saying this, that there have not been ongoing discussions
No.
between HAPAC and the applicant as to what, so it is somewhat premature to be representing a change in the windows in the stable area.
Correct. Thank you.
No, let me think about how we will handle this with the previous approval, since that previous approval dealt essentially with this whole side of the barn. I think we need to figure out how to close that out and then roll it into this discussion.
Well, and the other part is, as Mark pointed out, there were additional changes made to that elevation of the building that differ from what was approved previously. The fireplace has been removed and replaced with a different window. So there's different fenestration and apertures in that part of the building that we need to look at as well. But so there are changes. There's quite a bit going on in this application in terms of a new structure, modifications to things that have been previously approved, and an expansive master landscape plan.
Right.
There's a lot going on. Jim, do you have anything else? If you don't, I'll open it up to other planning board members.
Nope, I'm all set. Thank you.
Anyone else from the planning board? Questions for Mark or Dale? Okay, let's go to the draft procedural resolution then. Mark?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Jim?
Yep, I just need to flip to a different file.
Yeah, we got a lot of files going on tonight, folks.
I have 3 different PDF files open. Okay, Heinz Wildercliff, we will accept the application. Supporting document is adequate for further review by the planning board advisors and the public. We classify the action as type 2, which I believe will still hold. Mark, we're not going to cross any type 1 thresholds with this. The landscaping stuff, I wouldn't imagine.
No, I don't believe so, Jim.
I don't think so. I'll double check that, but I think we're okay there. We will schedule public hearing for April 18th at 6:15. Refer this to the CAB, WAC, HAPAC, and county planning. And we need to delegate at least 2 board members and obviously coordinate this with HAPAC and the CAB. Don't know if other board members would want to go as well. I know we've had a bigger delegation in the past.
I'll go. Who would like to join me?
I'll join you, Melody. Craig.
Thanks, Craig. And we will advise other planning board members when we schedule it. So if you choose to join us, you certainly may. I think that covers it. May I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved, Delise.
Thank you, Delise. Second.
Second, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark.
Thank
And I
you.
think, Mark, you might just as well stay on, I guess.
Yes, Howard
Up
will be
next-
speaking to this one, but I'll stay on.
Okay, so this is T-Court Phase 3, 195 River Road, Site Plan, Special Use Permit, and Wetlands Permit. I guess you're up, Howard.
Yes, it's up to me, giving Mark a little bit of a break after the first 2. If we could get the, yes, the presentation folder, I think this might be it.
Howard, may I ask you to lean forward toward your speaker?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Sure. I think as you know from our previous applications, the bulk of our work has been divided into 4 separate applications. You've seen the first 3, the train, the planting portion of our work, and then the small work over at Brindlebrook, basketball court and parking. This is the last application, and it includes all of our structures. This was separated out in part because the structures required a zoning board of appeals approval, because all of those, well, all but one of those structures were located in the front yard. Mark will probably talk about this when I'm finished, but we did receive approval from the zoning board of appeals for that application. So, so this tonight includes just 5 different parts. Just behind the T Court house, there's some improvements in addition to a existing garage or an existing cottage adding a garage. The buildings associated with the train, and then an expansion of the service area for the property. So if we can move to the next slide, Jim. Okay, this is showing the areas behind the tea house building. Now the tea house originally was just a play pavilion, a tea house built in the late 1940s. After his death, that was expanded into a residence with bedrooms, kitchen, garage, and all of the normal accoutrements. And those subsequent owners also expanded the rear terraces behind the house. Our work here is proposed to simply make changes to those terraces that were built in, I believe were built in the early 1990s. So that includes, on this plan, you can see to the left of the hexagon that is in the center of the building there. That's the original tea house portion. It's changes to the walkways that are outside of that, making them a little bit more residentially hospitable. And I'll show you a photograph of what it looks like now and what we want to change. Currently, there are 2 terraces outside of a bedroom, which is in the northern part of that building, and then just below, below the hexagon part is an existing terrace that are outside of the dining room. We are making a few modifications to those. The one off the dining room, we're adding a pergola, a wooden pergola for shade, since there is no shade at all on those terraces. And then just south of that, in this drawing at the very bottom of the page, you can see an extension of the terrace there. That's to accommodate the pizza oven and other grill cooking accoutrements. Similar expansion of the existing terrace that's on the north side of the building, and that's to accommodate an outdoor built-in spa. And we'll show you some construction drawings of that coming up. And then just north of that is a semicircular seat wall, a low 20-inch seat wall, stone seat wall around a raised fire pit. And that area is floating in existing lawn, and that has some of the best views north and northwest of the Hudson River. No other work is proposed around the tea house building than just these areas at the rear. Next slide.
Hey, Howard, you're a little garbled on your with your microphone.
Okay, and really apologize. I know that comes up an awful lot. Let me see if I can increase. Well, if that sounds any better.
Not really.
No.
Allow me to make a move, and maybe our Wi-Fi will kick in a little bit better. My apologies. While I'm walking, this particular area is the existing guest cottage, and you can see it in the left part, lower left part of the drawing. Tell me if the sound is any better or worse.
Better.
Okay, thank you. So the left building here is an existing cottage.
Not much.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go stand right next to our modem and we'll see if that will help.
All right.
Fuzzy connection.
Yeah, Howard, this is an ongoing problem, so let's figure it out for the future.
Yes. Okay. I'm not sure what more I can do for you. Okay, so this is an expansion of actually, Jim, this is not, I have to tell you, this is not the correct set of drawings. This is a previous iteration because this is showing a 2-bay garage. We have a 3-bay garage.
It shows 3. I see 3.
No, there are 3 cars parked in front of it, but there are only 2 bays in that garage.
Thought I had the right one. All right. Hold on a second. I will try again.
Yes, there you are. Just correct images on it. Yes. I mean, just to back up a little bit, we've seen this image. This is the existing condition of the tea house rear area. If you go to the next slide, these are the details of the drawings that go around in that area. There was an existing historic section of wall, which is on the right-hand side of that drawing from the Vincent Astor days. Subsequent owners expanded that wall to completely surround the court. Only the section on the right-hand side of that image, we see the 3 punch outs in that wall. That was from Vincent Astor's day. We are leaving that intact, but we're using all of the details of that existing wall to do the new walls when we expand the terrace for both the spa and the pizza oven. The next slide. And just a few other details from that area, particularly on the bottom there, the seat wall that we're going to use around the fire pit is using some of the same details that we used up at the Astor Court buildings from the previous application to expand the front entry there with a raised garden bed, and those walls are all mimicking a stone style that is the foundation of the Astor Courts building. So we're using material types that are typical for that property. Next slide. This is a drawing of the wood pergola. It's a very standard cedar, unpainted natural wood. The 3 posts at each corner and a series of lattice structures up above. Next slide. This is on the left is the raised spa, which we propose to veneer using the same brick details that are on the adjacent walls, so it fits in with that look. And then the fire pit itself in there also is the same natural blue stone that is in the image that I just showed you. Next slide. Planting for that area is very simple and straightforward. Just a bit of privacy shrub around the spa area and the fire pit because it's a little bit exposed to the driveway. And not much more than that. Next slide. Again, and this is the existing guest cottage. See in that image, and we're proposing a 3-bay garage extending off of that with a mudroom connection, all using the same materials of the existing building. Next slide. These are the elevations, front elevation. And next. And then a rendered plan showing on the right-hand side here is the existing structure, and then three-bay garage extension. Next slide. Planting for that is extremely minimal, just a little bit of planting around the corners of the building. Next slide. This is the existing maintenance shed. It's a current three-bay garage, yes, and Jim is showing where it's located. We are expanding that area because this was originally a service garage for just the TOR property. We now have 3 properties that we are servicing from this area. So just a little bit more room for all of the equipment necessary to keep the grounds looking good. So a new 3-bay service garage using the same materials as the existing. It's a little bit larger because we have some larger equipment that's needed for the size of property. There's a couple of material storage bins shown in there too, and proper parking for all of the staff that's necessary for the maintenance of this property. Now, this is a little bit of an odd arrangement of buildings. What we found, what's existing there are between these 2 parking courts is a series of utilities. There's a transformer, a generator, and an irrigation well with pressure tanks on the other side of the driveway. Rather than move those in order to make one larger court, we just decided to build a new court adjacent to that. So it's not to incur the additional expense of moving all of those utilities. So there's a certain economic rationale behind this configuration. Next slide. Yeah, these are just the elevations, but you can jump to the 3D image. It's more telling. Yeah, so we're really just using the same materials that are on the existing service garage. Very simple board and batten building with just a near clear natural stain on the wood. Next slide. And this is the planting plan for that, and all it involves is just evergreen screening so that the buildings are and the uses inside of the service court are not very visible. Next slide. Now these are the buildings associated with the miniature train. That involves the quarter circle building there, the roundhouse, which is to house and to service the engines that pull the train. To the right of that, what are called steaming bays, because some of these engines will be operating with steam. You do need to fire them up outside, so they simply are pulled out and put out there to fire up the coal in the engines. And then just in the center of the page, across an open porch, open covered porch, is the car barn, and that's the storage of the train cars themselves, where they just get pulled in and, by the engines and left in there. And then just to the north of that is a small station house, completing the train yard. You go to the next. Okay, the plan, just a little bit more detail of what I just described. Next. Elevations, and after that is a 3-dimensional view. And so this is one 3-dimensional view looking from inside the train yard at the roundhouse on the left and car barn on the right. And very simple utilitarian buildings, just vertical board, lightly stained, and I believe a metal roof. And then plan of the station house, very simple 1-room structure. And next slide. Elevations. This has got some period architecture to it. I believe the architects pulled some of this from some Hudson River Valley, traditional historic trains stations. Next. And then rendered view, and you can see inside the intention of this building is in part to provide shelter in inclement weather when using the train, but also to function as a small museum of some of the artifacts, the Astor family artifacts that our client has purchased over the years. Just a few small interesting items, and many of them related to Vincent Astor's original train. Next slide. Okay, and then this is just the 3/4 view of that same building. Next slide. Okay, and then just planting proposed to go around those buildings is some screening on the south side, which faces the main driveway to the Ferncliff estate, or to the tea house portion especially. And that is the gist of all of the structures. Now, Mark, I don't know if you want to bring into this also the tree house.
Yes, the treehouse is included in this, Howard.
Yes. Now the tree house, I can walk everyone through that. To the west of the tea house, and Jim, if you can circle the tea house here. Actually, if you go back to the plans so they can see its location.
Yep, hold on, sorry, I'm flipping around here.
Yeah, okay, so if tea house is, yes, that's where the tea house is. Just to the west of that, this small circle, that, yep, right there is, it's an existing tree house. We believe that was built probably in early 2000s, late 1990s by a previous owner. We are required to make that permitted now as part of all of this process. So that's why it's included. It was included in the ZBA application, approved, and before you tonight. Then you can go to the plans. So this is the existing layout and plan. Two modifications are proposed for. One, there is an existing set of stairs that comes down from it to grade at the bottom of this slope. We're simply proposing to run a boardwalk straight out from the elevation of the floor of the tea house right to grade, and they happen to be at the same elevation, so this can be a level walkway. It makes more sense to do that than to walk down the hill just to climb up the stairs to get into the treehouse. And then there's some additional structural components, since it's really standing on just a few stilts around these trees, some lateral support to give it more stability. Is there anything, Mark, that you might want to add to that?
No, that's it, Howard.
I think that's,
Okay.
that's our application.
Thank you, Mark and Howard. Jim, is there anything you'd like to comment on?
No, I think my comments are about the same as they were with the last proposal. I think most of the focus is on the historic nature of the property and the inclusion of these, I should have said proposed structures or elements. Just want to note the master plan for this project was approved on July 19th, 2021, and these were part of the master plan. So, our review isn't looking at the concept so much as it's looking at physically what's being proposed on the ground now in detail. Don't believe anything will be visible for really anyone unless you're up on one of the higher levels of Ferncliff, with the possible exception of the tree house up in the tree if you're in the Hudson River. But again, that's existing, as Howard mentioned. So really not a lot of questions. I did note, Howard, when you were running through the presentation, that the color rendering of the cottage showing the garage had a roof line that matched the existing cottage, where the drawing itself seemed like it had a much higher roof line. And
That's
I'm not
just
sure.
yeah, Jim, that's
Which is
just a perspective issue, because where they chose to do the rendering from, that garage is further away and slightly behind the existing building. So it would appear that the ridge line is the same. It is in fact, it's an accurate rendering. It's just that visibility.
Right, so that rendering, I'm sorry to say, that rendering looks the same, but when you look at the actual drawing here.
Yeah, exactly. It
So
is
this
slightly
is-
higher.
Okay.
And the reason for that is because these two buildings are close together. They wanted to keep the pitches of the roof the same between each building, but the garage, proposed 3-bay garage, is slightly deeper. It's a wider, longer building than the existing cottage. So that dictates that peak could go a little bit higher. To make them the same would mean that both roofs would pitch at a different angle, which would be kind of odd.
And then my only other comment is, as Howard mentioned, the ZBA did provide, give approval for the variances that have been requested last week.
Oh, so they actually issued the approvals.
Yes.
Okay,
last week.
all right, good, good. I wasn't clear on that.
So that was for the height of the tea house and the location of structures in front of the principal structure on the site, which covers pretty much, I think, everything Howard talked about tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Questions from other planning board members? If there are none, let's move to the draft procedural resolution. Jim, do you want to put it up?
Yep. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Again, I have to flip between
I
files.
understand. Here we go. Nope, wrong one.
This one.
Yep. that's it.
Okay, T-Court LLC Phase 3. Again, we're accepting the application supporting documents is adequate for further review by the planning board, the advisors, and the public. We're going to classify this action as type 2 under seeker, which is consistent with what we did for the master plan when that was actually a type 1 for the master plan itself. Each of the individual components are now type 2. We'll schedule a public hearing for this on April 18th at 6:15. Forward it to the CAB, forward it to the WAC, forward this to HAPAC, as well as Dutchess County Planning Department. And we need to delegate some planning board members to potentially attend again. I think everyone's been out to the site a couple times, so I'll leave it up to everyone what they want to do.
Well, who would like to visit specific to this application? Well, there's a round of enthusiasm.
Sorry, I'm gonna kill the enthusiasm there.
I'll go, Delise.
And who would like to accompany Delise? Okay, well, Delise, why don't you schedule it and put the date out there once you've scheduled it, and we'll see who else.
Go
can
with
do it.
Delise.
Oh, Sean, don't say it like that. Okay. Sean, we'll go with Delise. All right.
I'm happy to go see Howard and the crew.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So we'll rely on you to go out to conduct the site visit. So could I have a motion to accept the draft procedural resolution?
So moved, Edna.
Thank you, Edna. Second.
Second,
Was that Michael?
yes, it was.
All right. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, thank you very much. All right, that completes mercifully, that completes the new applications for this evening. And we'll now move into the public hearings. First up is Scott Lyons, 6961 Route 9 minor subdivision. We've had a request from the applicant and their representative to continue the public hearing until May 16th. Is that correct, Gretchen?
Yes.
All right, may I have a motion to continue the public hearing until
So
May
moved,
16th?
Edna.
Thank you, Edna. Second,
Second, Craig.
Craig, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the motion carries. Thank you. Next up, let's see, Robert and Mary Capes, 231 Rhinecliff Road, site plan review, construct a front porch. I believe the owners are here representing themselves. Is that right?
Yes,
We're the builders.
and the builders.
Yeah.
I think
Okay,
they're,
great.
yeah. Are you gonna
All right. Do you want to quickly run through your proposal? We saw you before, so let's hear it again.
We were hoping to put a front porch on the property at 231 Rhinecliff Road. Yes,
Nothing has changed.
we haven't made any changes. Yeah,
Same design, same colors, same layout. We did mark the staircase. There will be a sconce next to the front door.
yeah.
Yeah, we're just trying to continue on as originally proposed.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Jim, do you have any additional comments?
No, Melody, no new comments since the last time we talked. I think it's pretty straightforward and we had the discussion last time about how it's somewhat unique, but not the only front porch like this on this portion of the road. There is another one just down the road.
Okay, was there a site visit conducted?
We were never contacted by anyone for a site visit.
Okay. I don't necessarily see an issue with that, but let me ask my colleagues on the planning board if they have any comments or questions.
I assume that, Jim, you've already had a discussion about what this sconce looks like at the front door.
I actually have not, I don't believe I've seen, I think we asked for a cut of that last time. I don't know if that was submitted, but we'd certainly want that as part of the final submission. Just to make sure
Okay.
it's consistent.
Yeah, it's a very traditional wall-mounted sconce, lantern in style. We did get an electrical inspection to put exterior light where the sconce will go, and that's been approved. The rough-in has been approved. So
Yes.
we are moving forward.
So the light's supposed to be cut off to be dark sky compliant. I think Edna, given that there's a roof over it, it's not, a big concern that would be cut off by the roof, if not the light itself. But if you're going to include a picture of the light you want to put up there with your final submission, I think that would suffice.
Okay, we will.
Is that going to hold us up another meeting? No, okay.
I think at Jim's point is you need to add that with a specific cutout of what it's going to look like to your final submission.
Okay.
And I mean, we can certainly condition the approval tonight based on someone's sign off on that, but I don't even know that that's necessary. What do you think, Jim?
Well, like I say, it's got a roof over it, so night sky compliant will be via the light, hopefully, and certainly by I think the roof line. So I'm not too worried. It will still meet the intent of the law, I think, either way. Even if
Yeah,
put a
we did
spotlight
get engineered plans stamped and submitted to the building department that do show a sconce when you're looking south to the right of the exterior door with a sconce. And yes, I will get specifications and a visual of that sconce lighting to submit. No problem.
In my opinion, Melly, I think that will suffice, given the situation.
Okay, other comments from planning board members? Are you all satisfied with Jim's opinion that the porch covers the issue of dark sky compliance?
Yes, I am.
I think almost all lighting now has to be full cutoff, or it's even offered. Which just means that when you look at it, you won't see the bulb hanging down. You see just light, but you won't see the source of the light.
So I'm getting a sense that we're all in agreement. This is okay to move ahead.
It
Yeah.
should be, sure.
All right. If there are no further questions from the planning board, is there anyone here from the public who wishes to comment on this application? Okay.
Not seeing anyone, Melody.
All right, Jim, I think.
All right. Oh.
Give us Can we just vote? Can you just let us?
Yeah,
vote?
you can.
I know you're excited.
I am.
All right, we have a draft approval resolution. Jim, do you want to, don't hold these people in suspense any longer. Let's-
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Draft approval resolution will reaffirm the action as type 2 under seeker based upon the review of submitted information and information received from others. Find that the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations, chapter 125. And with respect to the application for site plan approval, asking the planning board to find the work and intended use to be consistent with town code chapter 125 and approve the application materials as submitted.
I think I have to make a motion to close the public hearing first, do I not?
Yes,
So
you do.
moved.
Moved by
Second.
Michael. Who was that?
Second, Craig.
Craig.
Oh, thank you, Craig. So could I call the question on closing of the public hearing? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Thank
Hearing
you.
none. Whoop, don't get ahead of me, Katie.
You're dying here.
I see. Well, I could drag this out a long time.
And I have a toddler, we're on like short attention spans over here in this house.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
public hearing is closed. We've run through the draft approval resolution. Did I get a motion for the draft?
So moved.
Michael, second.
Second,
Craig.
Edna.
Second, Edna, let me poll the board. Michael,
Aye.
Delise,
Aye.
Edna,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
and I vote yes. Okay, go ahead. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy your front porch.
Thank you.
Oh. Bit of humor. Thanks for brightening our night.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thank you. Good luck with it. Enjoy. Next up, Gigi Medor. I'm not sure if it's Medor or Medore. 3460 Route 9G site plan, special use permit and wetlands permit pool installation. Good evening.
Hold on. I
Hello.
will find it. It's in here somewhere.
I know Jim's working overtime tonight, folks.
Got too many files open.
Fantastic. Jim, can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
That is fantastic.
All right, just have to give me a second. I gotta find the file. But you can certainly start opening up the conversation if you want.
All right. GG Medor residence at 3460 Route 9G in the town of Rhinebeck. Application to install an in-ground gunite swimming pool. There is a pond on the property, so we are looking for a variance to have the structure extend into the buffer. We made the submission a little bit of an oddity, thanks to me, and propose essentially a comfortable location that would appease everybody, but the preferred location by the client is actually closer to the pond, more within the buffer than the proposed on the site plan. Although the location in which I'm speaking is indicated on the site plan as the previously proposed swimming pool, which is in the lighter footprint that extends beyond the darker footprint of the proposed swimming pool, if that makes any sense. A big reason of wanting the pool to be closer to the pond is essentially the access to the pool from the existing residence. With the pool as we propose, as we've made it the main proposal in that location, is fairly tight to the corner of the house. It forces my client Gigi Medor into the position to where, there's not enough space between the residence and the structure to allow for, easily maintained vegetation of sorts. So she'd be kind of forced into this position of hardscaping and redesigning and shaping her existing natural stone walls and miniature English garden. So we kind of propose this the two ways, just to be able to have the conversation and to do one final redraw in hopes to move this forward without having to incur significant expense of multiple engineer drawings and so on. We did meet with Michael and Sean, I believe. I'm sorry if I misspoke, if I got the wrong name, but on site, and we're able to better discuss the reasoning for wanting the pool to be closer to the pond opposed to where it's currently proposed. We did provide pictures as well as a professional wetlands summary by Aspen. Aspen shows in their summary they depict that there is not an increase of disturbance significance by having the structure located closer to the pond. And as you can see in the pictures with the tape measures that we have provided, it shows the distance from the house to the currently proposed location, the closer proposed location, and, just will hopefully give more clarity to as how this is felt to be claustrophobic in that area, and show of what structures or features on the property would have to be disturbed in order to install the pool further from the pond. I think that kind of hits it right there for the meantime.
Okay, Jim, any comments you want to offer?
Yeah, so I don't have any new comments, based on what was proposed. I think we discussed it in pretty decent detail last time. Stephen just explained a little further. My only comment would really be, and we've discussed this many times in the past as a planning board, the requirements the planning board has as it relates to intrusion and disturbance into the buffer, that it is a shall, the planning board essentially shall minimize disturbance into the buffer, I think to the greatest extent, feasible or practicable. So that's really my only comment at this point. I think everyone's read my memo. I've looked at the environmental, right up, and, it's mowed grass right up to the edge of the pond. We're not looking at any natural features on the edge of the pond, things like that. So my main discussion point or thought is just, intrusion into that buffer, and then making sure during construction we maintain silt fencing and things like that, just to minimize any runoff into the pond itself. But that's it for me.
Right. And just to touch on that a little bit, just so the board is fully aware.
Stephen, I'd like to move to the site plan report first.
Sure, sorry.
Thank you. So I believe it was Michael and Sean that made the site visit.
Yes, it was. Sean, would you like to go first, or?
Oh, sure, I'd love to, Michael.
You're having a good night.
We did, during the site visit overall, we did actually ask for the photos that were submitted. The moving of the pool close to the house to get the pool further out of the wet zone does literally put it right up against a lot of existing structure, and it feels claustrophobic in person. Overall, to kind of communicate, it is mowed grass down to the pond. There's still a significant distance. It's much harder to look at this map and see how close it is to the house than when it's in person. I kind of wish that you guys did take a picture a little bit further back, just to kind of show that a little bit further, but it did feel claustrophobic, and I am in favor of potentially allowing them to push it back further from the house to give them the space they need to actually enjoy the landscape and the space.
Michael?
Yeah, I frankly, having looked at it, moving it out a little is not going to create any ecological problems on this site, as long as during installation there's proper silt fencing and things like that. I think it's very important in our wetland law that we have that shall requirement there. But we also have a special use permit, 12542, I think it is, working near water bodies, streams, ponds, things of that sort, which has a 100-foot buffer, but you can get a special use permit to work within that buffer, and there's not a shall, there's more of a should. And I think if we applied, and this is something I know we've discussed, and I know I've discussed it with Jim about when do we go with a pond as opposed to a wetland. This is clearly a pond. There's mown grass right down to it. There's evidence, I guess, maybe at the far corner of a little bit of wetland type of vegetation and all. But this is not what I would consider a natural classical wetland. It's a pond. And I know we're trying to work out someone to determine when we apply one and when we apply the other. I think this would be an example. Personally, this is just my opinion, that we would apply the special use permit 12540. I think that's what it is, Jim. You can find it in there, which would require a 100-foot buffer and a special use permit to intrude into the buffer, but gives the planning board the latitude to determine whether or not the intrusion is such that it would be ecologically harmful to the water resource. So I know it's kind of flipping around from a wetland to a special use permit, but this is something that I know we're trying to work out guidelines on how to do it. And I think this would be an example of an instance where we would probably go with a special use permit rather than a wetland permit. Still have to support, of course, but I think it gives us an attitude.
Okay, there's the site visit report. So let me open up the questions from other planning board members or comments.
Guess what? Edna has a comment.
No, really?
My concern is we have a pond, which according to the wetland law is considered a wetland. And the lawn has been mowed down to the edge of the water continuously so that no natural vegetation has been able to grow at the edge of the water. The pond, if you take a look at Dutchess County Parcel Access, the pond is part of a wetland stream system. It has an inlet at the north and an outlet that travels south and west, goes through a wetland to a tributary of the Rhinebeck Hill. So what goes into the water of the pond, such as soil runoff, fertilizer, etc., can negatively impact waters downstream. My primary concern is that the pond edge should have thick plantings that can screen out pollutants before they enter the water. And there are a whole variety of beautiful plants that like pond edges, like grasses and sedges and iris and so on. I would like to suggest that any permit, whether it be a special permit or a wetland permit, include the condition that appropriate planting be done completely around the pond.
And now, wouldn't that make the pond kind of unusable?
Unusable for what?
Well, if you see there's a dock on it for swimming, I'm assuming they might have a kayak or a boat to enjoy the water on their property.
What you need to use a dock is a way to get to the dock. What you need to use a kayak or a canoe is a way to get it into the water. If the lawn was not continuously mowed down to the pond edge, there would be some natural plantings around the pond.
So Edna, just to interrupt here, to clarify what I think is going on is you suggested that it would be encircled with plantings. And I think Sean's point was, would that allow for individual access to the pond? Can you explain that more clearly?
I'm sure that access wherever it's needed could be provided easily, but there should be plantings around that pond to keep things like fertilizer, flood soils and whatever from flowing into the pond.
Okay.
And the pond, frankly, would look more beautiful and more natural.
Okay. Other planning board members.
This is Craig. I hope that if this special use permit is granted, that it would include some sort of controls during construction, because if you're encroaching on that buffer, you're going to have to get equipment on the other side of the encroachment. And that really that's sort of the purpose of the 100-foot buffer, is it gives you that, that release. And the photograph that's on the screen right now kind of shows the, rather sloppy, muddy condition that, might not be best the closer it gets to that water's edge.
Okay. Other planning board members? I'm asking the people who made the site visit, I'm asking in general, do any of these circumstances or these issues that have been raised change if the size of the pool changes?
Well, if the size of the pool changed, it could be pulled out of the buffer. I mean, then it's just a building permit situation. There's no need for a wetland permit or a special use permit.
Okay, so that
would be up to the applicant to decide what
I
they
see.
want to do.
let me, if I've exhausted the questions from the planning board, let me ask if there's anyone from the public who's here and interested in commenting before we move further. Okay, so there's no one from the public. This is really a discussion of ours.
Hello.
Yes, Carol?
Yes. If the concern is,
Carol, are you here from the public or are you representing the applicant?
well, this comment could be from a public, but I am representing the applicant, but I mean,
Okay,
this is a,
right now I was asking for public comment.
okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I just want to make sure that we have not overlooked the public. So.
Melody, someone, Eleanor just raised her hand, Melody.
All right, Eleanor. Eleanor. Oh.
I'm kind of new to this process, so I don't have a lot to say, but I have to say that what Edna said makes a lot of sense. We really do have to protect natural areas, and I don't think we're doing a very good job of it. And it, it took nature how many tens of thousands of years to build this planet, and we just happily knock it down without thinking about the consequences. So, I really appreciate what Edna said. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. Is there anyone else from the public?
I don't know if I count as the public, but I am the homeowner. And to address a couple of your issues, this is a lap pool. It's, we live on a very busy road, 9G. I do swim in the pond. My kids swim in the pond. My dog swims in the pond. So accessing the pond is incredibly important. We do have, as you probably saw there, a little paddle boat. I do have a kayak. I'd have a longboard as well. So we do enjoy the pond, and that was the purpose for which it was built by my neighbors in the late 70s, was to, and certainly to, it was basically a marshy area, and they dug it out so that their kids could enjoy the pond and access it, which they did for many years. But as we get older, that becomes more challenging, but the pool is really a lap pool. We did change the dimensions. And frankly, if I had the space and the resources to do a longer pool, I would do a longer pool, but that's not doable. But for anyone who swims, it's hard to make use of a pool that's meant for exercise in something that is shorter than this. So it is something we thought significantly about before deciding on this particular length. It is already a compromise, but it's not really meant as a splash pool. It's meant primarily for laps, and so the length is, while we could shorten it and be further away from the pond, it would have a considerable impact on its very purpose.
Okay, thank you. I'll return to Carol. I believe you had a comment you wanted to make.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm sorry. There was some concern earlier about perhaps, erosion, sediments and silts flowing down. In lieu of silt fencing, core logs could be used, which are much more effective and much less impactful, in that you don't have to dig down several inches. They can just be, they're like an 8-inch log of natural materials, and they could be installed, and that would be preventing any of the silt or sediments from any of this from entering the pond area.
Thank you, Carol. All right. It seems to me that there are still a number of questions before us regarding this application. I'm open to input from everybody else, but I don't know that I'm at the point where I think we can close the public hearing and move to accept this application. Others, please weigh in. Jim, Michael, your thoughts, please.
Well, my thoughts are, as a wetland permit, we are required to make any changes to minimize impacts on the wetland buffers. And in this case, obviously, we can do that. I mean, it has been done. It was moved back, so that clearly it can be done. It was, that can be done under the wetland permit. That's a significant modification that was made, and I would think under those conditions, the permit could be given. Clearly, any permit we give has to be conditioned by proper erosion control measures, which I think we would do in almost any case with any construction project, given the grade here and, a water resource down at the bottom of it. If we were to shift it over to a special use permit, it gives us a little bit more latitude if we feel that that's appropriate. We've never done that before, so it would be something different. But I think it just clearly points out the fact that we need to have some way of determining, and I know Jim's been trying to work on this and pull this together, when one type of permit is more applicable to a situation than the other type of permit. I think something that has created some confusion is that all ponds, water bodies, the Hudson River, everything has been labeled by the Army Corps as part of the National Wetland Inventory. They all are, even though I think most people would consider the Hudson River itself, between its banks, is not a wetland, it's a river. Actually, it's an estuary. And the same with many, many ponds. They're, especially those that have been created for stormwater runoff, things like that. Eventually, they can turn into wetlands because of the moisture, the type of vegetation that'll grow on and the constant, hydric nature of the soil near them. But very often they're not. And streams within their banks, our law on the water resource overlay gives greater protection to streams than the wetland law does, for example. So in many cases, if we're working with a classified DEC stream, if protection is our main goal, we would want to use the WRO rather than the wetland law. So we obviously have some very good tools here, but we just need to know how to manage them a little bit better. That doesn't help much, does it?
Well, I think it brings to the fore that there are still a number of unanswered questions. Jim, is there anything you'd like to offer?
Not really, no. I mean, I think it's a decision of the board as to how you'd like to move forward. Utilizing the law that you have to use and the way you need to. We did produce that memo back in 2021, trying to help clarify this a little bit, that was sent out to everyone. I could certainly send that again. Maybe should have done that before tonight. Didn't think about that one. But we could certainly do that if it helped clarify the discussion if needed. But no, I don't really have any other thoughts on.
Jim, can I chime in here? I just want to refresh the board's mind on this project a little bit, and maybe it's a little unclear. Let me start with one thing first, with the buffer on the pond. The 100-foot buffer, if the pool was placed in the closer position to the house that you see on the drawings, if the pool was made smaller or it wasn't as long, if the pool was shifted even back further to the house, I don't think that there's any one point with the pool being kind of in the orientation that it is, that construction will not impede into the buffer. So then we have the question of, okay, well, how much is impeding too much into a buffer, and what are we doing to manage this during construction? So regardless if the construction mitigation is uphill 20 feet or downhill 20 feet, we still have to do a sufficient job of managing the mess that we're making during construction, period. And the goal there is to not affect the pond, period. So I think that, and what that kind of leads into is the overall end result of this project. The pool, where it extends out into that buffer, is out of the ground, exposed, stone cladded, which Gigi Mador is spending an exorbitant amount of money on to be able to do to preserve that buffer. So we're not building up the soils, we're keeping the existing topography. The stockpiling of materials is happening down by the barn and the garden, out plenty downhill outside of the buffer zone. We're doing everything in our power to maintain that buffer and not hurt the pond during construction and after construction. There's no terraces, there's nothing. We're going to have grass around this pool. This pool is going to be elevated out of the ground, and topography is not being disturbed. So once grass is grown back, it it really, in my opinion, the structure is not proposing any type of harm towards the buffer, the pond, the DEC, the downstream, the Hudson, anything of that nature. And therefore also leads into where Edna was saying with planting around the entire pond. Well, I think that really doesn't do anything as far as the pool's construction. It doesn't, we're not looking to mitigate something because we change grades or we have a different slope going towards the pond and now we're worried about capturing erosion. We're talking about, okay, is the client using harmful product on her lawn, and whether there's 4 foot of sedge or there's no sedge? Well, if you're using fertilizers around, people are reckless, and the person applying it might get it too close, or either way, we get a heavy storm and it's going to wash into the pond. So it's really just, you know, ethics on the homeowner of not using hazardous materials around a wetland or a body of water. So, I mean, all in all, I'm not sure of what more, you know, taking this to the end zone, I don't really see myself in what more there is to discuss as far as this project moving forward almost, and being able to have that conversation tonight. Because in my eyes, it's almost on a simpler level. We have mitigation during construction. After construction, we haven't changed site conditions with the exception that there's a pool sticking up out of the ground where all other topography has remained. And we're not discharging any waters or anything like that towards the pond from that are a result of the construction of the pool.
Thank you, Stephen.
I just might want to add to Stephen's comments. You know, I've been through this, the code, your wetland code time and time again, and I'm just looking back at the intent. And, you know, basically we're going back to the multiple functions and benefits. And I've written a very extensive analysis of the fact that there is not an impact to any of the functions or benefits provided by the aquatic resource due to this proposal in either location. And that's it's been submitted to you folks for your review, but when you're doing a functions and benefits analysis, it's really this has no impact to the wetland.
Oh, we appreciate that, but we're actually looking at how the law guides us.
Melody,
Yes, Edna.
may I reply to a couple of comments just made? In the Wetlands Law 120-6 regarding controlled acts, Section A3B states, quote, "Replacement of buffer vegetation with lawn is not permitted." Now, I realize that the pond was built decades ago, but the lawn gets mowed every year up to the water's edge, preventing any natural vegetation from taking root there. I believe that mitigation that proposes some planting around the pond is very much in order. Thanks.
All right.
Melody, is that part of the application to review that?
What
Edna just spoke of?
Well, yes. I mean, it's all before us to review all these parts of the law and everything that's before us. So, I mean, I'm at the, you know, someone can make a motion tonight to approve it, but I don't personally think that we've addressed all the questions that are before us. I think there have been opportunities presented to us to make this a better application. And personally, I think we would be remiss if we did not explore those, such as additional plantings and other things. I'm speaking only for myself. This is before the planning board. I would offer Jim a chance to weigh in. I would offer Michael as the ZA, the acting ZA, to weigh in.
Yeah, I'd love Michael to comment, because when we were on site, it was pretty straightforward. And I'm just speaking from being on site and the rest of the board not being on site. But the comments back and forth from me and Michael were, this is pretty straightforward. And this seems to be a completely change of mind by the board tonight.
Well, I didn't think it was completely straightforward in that we were deciding between whether it was a special use, whether we're dealing with wetlands or whatever. So I will confess to being quite muddled myself at this point as to how to
Michael,
go.
do you have any comment?
Yeah, I do. And I guess speaking strictly as the zoning administrator at this moment, because the comments you and I had between us as to what we saw there, I think we both were in agreement. We are restricted as a planning board. We can't modify or ignore the law. We have to apply it as written. And that one portion of our wetland law says that if there are means to minimize intrusions into the buffer, we shall put those means into effect. And we have seen that the current position of the pool was moved back from what the original decision was. So obviously that can happen. That obviously can happen. On the other hand, I think Sean and I both agreed, looking at it, that the lawn is there, the pond is there. These are the conditions under which the situation exists at the present time. That the pool, using proper means to prevent erosion during construction and post-construction until the lawn comes back, I think it would be wonderful if plantings were done at least along that area below the pool, wetland type plants, to give some further control over, some filtering control over what might go into the pond would be wonderful. However, I do see also that we would have greater flexibility in how we address this if it were a special use permit, which also addresses ponds. We have two laws which both address a similar resource, but they do it from a somewhat different direction. One gives us a little more flexibility. As Jim said, he's been working on a way to try and determine which way to go. But speaking strictly as the zoning enforcement officer, if this were a special use permit as opposed to a wetland law, I think we could tonight say, yeah, okay, you want to move it out a little further, we can do that. As a condition of permitting that, we would like to see some plantings down below to create somewhat of a riparian filtering zone down there, which would tend to address anything coming down the hill. No, at least it's okay. Please go ahead. But do we want to?
What is the best way forward this evening, folks?
I don't know of anything in the law that prevents the planning board during a meeting such as this, if we feel a different permit is preferable to the one that was applied for. And on occasion in the past, we've done that. We found that that's not the right permit, or someone had applied for one they didn't need, or something along those lines, that we could go with the special use permit and condition it so that there would be a certain plantings done down below, Edna has suggested, along the area below the pool, not around the whole pond, but below the pool, addressing the situation that we have before us today, to help to enhance any filtration effects, to prevent silt and fertilizers and things like that from going down. I think properly conditioned, I think that special use permit would give sufficient protection to the pond from the installation of the pool.
Jim, do you want to bring up the draft procedural resolution, or the approval resolution? Sorry.
Yep,
Or
I can do
past procedural. So
right-
in
Right,
looking
right.
at this approval resolution, and I'm particularly looking at Edna and Michael, how would you amend this or change this in order to allow us to move forward?
I have a condition to propose. I think one step that would have to be taken is we would be talking about a special permit rather than a wetland permit, as Michael suggested. And then the condition to be added could read something like the following. A planting plan, including an illustration, is to be developed for the area. We would have to designate what area. Michael, you could help with this. To include the variety and quantity of plants and the width of the planting area. This is to be submitted to the planning board chair and must be judged to be satisfactory before any work on the proposed pool begins. The planting at the pool edge must be completed before a certificate of occupancy is granted for the pool. We've done something exactly like this before.
Okay. Michael, anything to add?
I think something along those lines, I think, is what we're kind of looking for. We would also put in the normal language we do for any construction that goes on in an area that's near any body of water, or anything like that, in terms of silt fencing or the other materials that the representative from Aspen suggested. And I would think, given her background also, she might also be able to assist the applicant in just putting together a planting plan that would address Edna's suggestion, and do it in such a way that it actually is attractive, using certain wetland type shrubs and plants, sedges. There's some lovely flowering plants that work in hydric areas, soils like that, so that you want it to be aesthetically pleasing. You don't, but a properly done wetland type of garden can be extraordinarily attractive. And I think it would address the concern of anything coming downhill from the pool that might potentially be harmful to the pond itself.
Jim, are you following all this?
Yes, I can put a condition in there. If we went this route, we would delete number 4, I believe, the wetlands permit, deeming that wasn't necessary. So it'd be a site plan special use permit approval.
All right, let me just to close this out a bit. I think we're moving in a good direction here. We've heard from Michael. Delise, is there anything you'd like to offer at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just listening. I'm taking it all in. I think the thing that perhaps to clarify, if the permit or the use, the variance would have to look different, and the contingency is around the pond, are there any other questions we're missing? Or is the assumption that if a planting plan is satisfactory along with the variance change, that they would then be able to move forward? Is that correct?
I think it's so. I believe so.
So that let me just knows. Is there any other questions that we're missing, or is that really the contingency here?
I think it's the big thing.
I just want to clarify one thing. We're not. I think just to clarify, we're not. I've heard a couple times the word variance. This is not a variance. This is just an approval. This is just an approval that's provided by the planning board. It's not a ZBA variance. Just want to clarify that for the record.
Thank you.
It would be a special use permit and a site plan approval, and part of the site plan would include a planting plan.
I got it.
Okay. Sean, anything else you want to add? You're muted, Sean.
That was on purpose, Melody.
Really? Okay.
No, is the planting plan, I guess my question is, the planting plan to mitigate during construction? Question mark number 1.
It would be during construction and in the years to follow. It would just be to protect that area. And as it grows in, if done properly, it'll actually be a very attractive asset on the along the edge of the pond. And I'm not talking about around the whole pond or anything like that.
It's a vegetative, it's a vegetative filtration system.
No, I hear you loud and clear. I'm just trying to understand where that is a requirement. If they didn't do the pool, they wouldn't have to do that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I guess
Sean, it's generally within the purview of the planning board under the special use permit, site plan, and wetlands, law, to be able to look at any ways to mitigate any impacts, that the board sees that might come about. The degree to which those impacts are mitigated that's what's up for discussion by the board, if any. But it's definitely within the purview of the board under the permits being applied for.
I think it can be looked at as a justification for switching from a wetland permit to a special use permit and site plan, which gives us greater flexibility to approve where she wants the pool to be.
That's kind of a trade-off.
Answers other questions of potential impact on the pond in the future.
Yeah, and this is Greg, just to put in my 2 cents worth.
I'm going to get to everybody. I'm going to go one by one here. Okay.
Okay.
You want to finish up, Sean?
I'll save my energy for the next application.
Oh my goodness. let's see, I talked to Delise. I was moving on. Craig, comments?
Yeah, just, something was mentioned before about the function of this law, and the way that I see it, part of the function is to underline the importance of these water resources and to restrict development within that 100-foot buffer. And that's a general application of these principles. And we can restrict it, but we can allow it given good reasoning. And I think we need to look at the reasoning behind this. I'm fairly confident that the law doesn't mention anything about claustrophobia. But there are other things that we have to maintain. Like, for instance, you have to maintain a certain offset from your septic tank, and nobody wants to encroach on that. So I know that was an issue the last time this came up in a hearing, was the proximity of the septic to one of the alignments for the pool. So I think there is a way to square this circle. It has to be done fairly, and it has to be done in a way that can be applied to circumstances just like this, without undermining that protection that we have for the 100-foot buffer around wetlands.
Thanks, Craig. Joe, where are you? Can't
I'm
see.
here. Can you
Hi,
see me?
Joe.
Oh, you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
I actually have two questions. One was based on Edna's language that she suggested. It said making sure plantings were in before the pool went into construction. How far in advance does that have to be done? And who determines how much planting is done around the pond?
Basically, we would determine how much, and I think that we would try to focus upon what's necessary to mitigate anything coming down from the construction area. I think that it's necessary. I think that the plantings can take place at the same time the pool is going in, but you basically want to make sure you're doing your plantings during planting season. For example, probably middle of August is probably not the best time. Now would be, well, now for plants that are dormant, but April and May would usually be very good times to do plantings of wetland type of plants, things like that, before we get a hot, dry summer. So I think you really have to do your plantings when the plants really want to go in the ground. I think ideally, if you have materials put in, silt fencing or some other barriers to prevent anything going down from the pool construction area, and leave it there until you have your plantings established, you're pretty much accomplishing what you're trying to do, which is to keep things out of the pool during construction. And then once the plantings take hold, they'll take over the job of anything coming down. They'll be the filter for that in the future.
Michael, we also have the ability to ask our CAB to be a consultant in terms of selecting plant material, don't we?
We can certainly do that, yes.
Yes.
And Joe, this all would come about through the planting plan in illustration that Ed had mentioned in the condition of approval. So assuming that the applicant is okay with this, if that was a condition of approval that all the board members agreed to, they need to move forward, and that plan would be something that Melody would take a look at with the CAB, get approval, and then be able to stamp and sign a plan. If, say, the applicant's not interested in this discussion and the way that it's gone, then the planning board would have to kind of talk about plan B. But it seems right now that's where things are headed with you guys as a board.
So I think we're moving toward a consensus around how we can move forward. So I guess I would turn it back to Gigi and Stephen to see if this is something that you're in agreement with and you would like us to see us move forward with.
Well, I think I can speak for Gigi, and Gigi, I'm sorry if I can't, but I will. Yes, I think that would be an acceptable kind of contingency there for all of us to be able to get on the same page to get this thing moved forward, is to have some planting mitigation between the pool and the pond in that direct area. But my question is, while we keep moving forward with this as the idea for us all to be able to get through it, I circle back to, because we haven't really discussed it, that contingency is based on which pool location, because our heavy hand and how we're coming in here today is asking to be able to bring the pool back to the originally proposed location, to get the pool away from the house, to allow for more plantings up by the house, and less hardscaping and less less demolition of existing site conditions, the
All right, where,
stone,
Jim,
natural stone retaining walls and English garden.
somebody tell me where we are.
My understanding, Melody, right now is we're at the point of, I think the board willing to consider approval with the need for a planting plan that would have to be developed for a certain area, which is still TBD. I think it is still a question of the location. Again, it depends on how you want to go, but it's really up to the board. Are you comfortable with pool location A or pool location B? I think it sounds like the plantings, because we are in the buffer regardless, are probably something people want to see either way. That was my take on it, but I guess maybe
Am I
that's
looking at A or B on my screen right now?
Both.
well, you have the proposed pool in the in the black, that would be, I guess we'll call that A, and then the location that I believe the applicant would prefer to be it, which is in B, which is in gray. And again,
Okay,
whichever way we go, this plan would have to be cleaned up to just show that one location before it was submitted. So that's another condition.
If we're moving ahead tonight, we need to, if we're gonna do an approval resolution tonight, we need to agree on the extent of the pool.
Is that,
Correct.
it's that second, the gray outline one, is that also a 50 by 16 foot swimming pool that's just moved closer to the pond? Or is that a longer lap pool?
No, it's the same size, 16 by 50. So assuming, agreeance by all parties, a new plan would be generated with the pool in the light gray outline. So the pool would be located in the light gray outline, showing that it is indeed a 16 by 50, as well as the mitigation plantings down on the edge of the pond. For a final site plan, all encompassing.
I have a question. Why can't the pool be moved a little closer to the garage? Is that what that other building is?
Okay, folks, come on now. We're either going to move ahead with some kind of approval, or we're going to defer this and go back to the drawing board. We have several more people to come before us tonight, and I'm becoming a little frustrated with how we can get to a solution here. I mean, there's many things we can do, but I really need to think about moving ahead at some point. I get your question, Edna, but it's like, are we moving it ahead? Are we moving it back? I really don't know where we are.
Well, just to hit Edna's question, the septic tank and leader lines coming from the house and going to the D box are in the location between the pool and the gym, the newly developed gym.
I think if the owner's preference is to have the pool in the location of the grade area, then we should have the proposal about the plantings in order for us to decide to approve that moving forward. Move forward with what King's preference is.
I would suggest that if the applicant finds the dark location as depicted here on the drawing acceptable, then that's what we should develop around.
I agree.
I mean, it certainly would be, maybe preferable to them to go closer to the pond, but I think it would be more of a compromise, I think, to have it where it's shown on the drawing.
Well, that is the application before us.
And in order to accept this location as well, we would have to swap what we're approving from a wetland permit to a special use permit and site plan.
Jim, are we anywhere close to a resolution?
I think I kind of sort of heard a proposal from Craig to consider the area shown as the proposed 50 by 16 pool as being the one to, I guess, consider maybe for a vote. But that would also, I assume, Craig, in your thought, in your mind, that we still have a planting plan down below. I think the idea was generally planting plan regardless of location, but I think we need to just maybe take votes on, on location and kind of move this forward if that's where we are.
Actually, I can correct what I just said. If we are going to approve it where it sits now with the planting plan, we can do that under the wetland permit that's been applied for, because it's been moved back from the buffer, which as far as would be practicable really, but it's still in the buffer, which would then require, I believe, the planting plan down below to mitigate any potential issues down the road. We could do that under the existing, the location shown before us right now in dark could be done under the wetland permit. If we were to do it under the lighter one, I think we would have to swap it out for a special use permit and site plan, because we're no longer following the shall move it back. So that's depending on which permit we wish to work under. I think the planting plan would be a desirable condition under either case.
I agree, Marco. Let's go with the wetlands permit.
Just because I may have lost my way in this, what did the applicant prefer? I feel like I'm not even sure anymore. Which one was?
The applicant prefers it to be a little further away from the house, because it's literally, I can stand at the pool edge and at the existing stone that I have there. It's incredibly close to the house. And what this will require is to hardscape everything between the pool and this and the house, rather than have any grass. So I actually would like to have grass, to have it to be a much softer look than I will be required to make it. So it's sort of ironic that we're arguing about the location. I'm trying to soften the whole look to the pool and to be respectful of the environment surrounding this. This is all elevated quite a bit above the pond. You have to work around the septic system and other things. So we've been working on this for 4 years. It's not a new, we've gone through multiple iterations of the ideal location for this. So I can assure you, if you're coming up with a suggestion for where to put it, we've considered it already and have spent years and a lot of resources trying to come up with a plan that we can move forward with. Someone also mentioned the pond and cutting down to the pool edge. The pond looks the way it looks. I mean, I have someone cuts the grass, but that's about it. On the far end of the pond, nothing grows on the pond edge, and you can't get a lawnmower down there because of the grade. So it doesn't even get cut. It's certainly, no one mows the far end and nothing grows on the edge there. So there's nothing unnatural about that. I suppose if we let that go for another decade, that might look different, but it is fairly natural. And that is the entire idea. That the pond is my property. I wouldn't do anything to harm the appearance of it or the function of it. The whole point of this is to be respectful toward the property and to the pond. So the best location is to move it further away so that it's not sitting right on top of the house, which, as the people who went to the house and saw this can attest, it feels very close, much closer than it appears on this plan. And so moving it a little bit away makes that much more comfortable.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have one more quick question. What is the existing distance of that corner of the pool to the house in the current iteration we're looking at?
Corner to corner, roughly 15 feet.
Thank you.
And again, you can see on the plans while we're all talking about this, previously proposed edge of pool is denoted closer to the pond. And that's showing a 67-foot setback off the edge of the pond. And the darker proposed that is the client's least preferred location is an 86-foot setback.
Thank you.
Yep.
Where are we going, folks?
I personally propose that I would be happy to move forward with the plan with the client moving the pool towards the pond with the assumption that she cleans up, it creates a little bit more of a buffer around the pond.
I second that.
Does that mean that she has to come back with a different permit, correct?
We could swap the permit tonight, I believe. I think the planning board has the authority to do that. We would make the ability for Melody to stamp and sign the final site plan conditional upon receiving a planting plan that was found suitable to function as a riparian filter zone down by the pond.
Do we have a resolution to consider?
So what we have, Melody, would be this resolution, I believe, deleting out the wetlands permit number 4 and adding in the condition essentially as it was noted by Edna. So this would be a site plan special use permit review. The applicant will have to revise the plans to show one location of the pool, which I guess would be the gray area based on the current motion. With a planting plan, including an illustration that would be developed for a certain area around the pond that's still to be determined in consultation with you and CAB to provide for some wetland plantings. And as long as that was judged satisfactory by you as the chair, it could then be stamped and signed by you. I believe that's where we stand.
Everybody understand that?
Yep.
Could I have a motion?
Also move.
So move. Second, Sean.
Motion second, but well, let me back up. I always get ahead of myself. I think at this point I believe I asked for public comment, but let me make sure I did, and there is none. Okay, so could I have a motion? Pardon?
I'm sorry, I think you're all set. No other questions.
I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Move to close the hearing.
Motion second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. So Jim has gone through the resolution. Is everybody comfortable and they understand what's being proposed?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think, Michael, you made
And I
a,
will add a condition for a planting plan, essentially.
right. Michael, you made the motion.
I did.
Second,
On.
Sean?
Sean second.
All right,
Yes.
I'll pull the board. Michael,
Yes.
Delise,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Craig,
Yes. Aye.
Edna,
Yes.
and I vote reluctantly, yes. Thank you all for hanging in. This is a very difficult situation, and I appreciate your involvement and your attention. So thank you, everybody. Next up, I believe we have T Court Phase 2A, 189 and 195 River Road. Is that right? Am I in the right place?
Yes, Melody.
Great.
Okay, hello, everyone, I'm back. Jim, if you could put up the presentation, I'll run through it very quickly.
Can't hear you.
Okay.
All right, so I think I introduced it. I would turn it over
Yeah.
to you, Howard.
Yeah,
For
Jim,
any,
if you can get
for
the
any, for
presentation
any,
up.
yes, for any general updates. We've seen this before, so
Yeah.
have mercy
There are
on
no
us.
there are no changes. So if you'd just like me to run through it to refresh everyone quickly, or
Quickly,
yeah, like if we go back to the beginning. Okay, just a few landscape changes here to the property. These are all planting items. Jim, can you just jump to the next one? We'll go right into it. This is the restoration of an existing, the original historic driveway connecting two of the properties that we own that were divided by subdivision. That's where it says restored driveway here. This is a 1906 survey, so it shows what the original conditions were. And that includes an open meadow area that currently is overwooded. We'd like to take the trees down there and open that view up again. Next. On the left is a 1953 view. Well, Vincent Astor was still alive, looking at that view. And then on the right, the current condition where the trees have grown up and covered that view. Next. And this is just showing the plan location where it is. It's roughly an eighth of an acre of territory. Next. Part of the application is restoring an existing woodland garden. We know it's from one of the Astor areas. We just don't have much historical reference to it, so we don't know its exact layout, but there are remnant pieces laying there. You can see the remnant of a bridge across the stream there. There are some stones that outline paths. They're a bit broken up, so we're going to try and restore them as best we can and plant it up with woodland, more woodland plants next. This is the kind of woodland plants that grow there, and then you jump quickly to our layout. That's just what grows up normally there, and we'll just enhance that. This is the layout, just some of the stones being rearranged, some stairs restored, and the small bridge restored using, we're going to choose to use an Adirondack style of bridge. Planting plan showing
sorry, Howard, I jumped in.
I'm jumping very fast for you. Yeah, it's just the planting plan. Many native plants, but a number of just ornamental pieces that would be appropriate for an historic garden like this, but all woodland in nature. Next. Simple work done by the powerhouse. Powerhouse was permitted quite a while ago for restoration. That restoration is complete. And we just want to clean up the construction area there. You can see all the gravel from the construction. It's just sweep away a good amount of that and plant and just put some lawn seed in its place. Next. And this just shows it in plan, creating a few parking spaces and some paths to get into the building and a small road to get to the rear of the building. On the bottom of the page here, where there is a transformer, so we're required by the utility to have the truck access to that transformer. But everything else in the hatched areas will just be a seeded lawn. Next. There are two mazes going in here. This is one of them. We plan to do this with, as described before, the instant hedge, so that we can purchase this at a 5 to 6 foot height, so that it is actually, there's not a long growing period for this. It'll be a fairly instantaneous usable maze. Next. Second one, just a different configuration, and this one has a few doors in it to make it a playful experience of making the maze a bit more complex. And there's some metaphoric reasons that I've gone in before for these. Spare you that tonight so we can move quickly. But next. And then the last part of this is because this was a subdivision of several properties that we are combining, there are 3 gates at one point along the main driveway. There's no need for 3 gates. We don't consolidate to just one. So that's the one that Jim is circling, and that's moving the one that is at the very top of the page, simply moving it to this location. And then we eliminate the other 2 gates. That is the application.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Jim, do you have any comments?
No new comments. Again, you heard it earlier. Just a reminder, the master plan for the project was approved in July of 2021. You've read all my comments. We discussed these last time. We did confirm that the miniature train detail cross section was not part of this, so that was taken care of. Otherwise, yeah, nothing new from me.
I believe there was a site visit. Am I correct?
Yes.
So those that went on the site visit, would you like to offer comments?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it all seemed to comport with, you know, what our expectation should be for such an important property in the town. There's respect being given to the historic nature of the view shed. as Howard showed in the photograph, that was once a very important feature of the property, and that has subsequently been overgrown, and that's going to be reclaimed. Likewise, the path to the garden. A lot of these things that he just spoke about, I think are very well aligned with that. He had given the assurance that this was not at any time part of a romantic landscape garden, but that I think goes more to the acceptance of the master plan, which has already been done, and the rearrangements of the gates I think makes a lot of sense, and it removes some complication from the property. I think it's a bonus. So
Thank
that's
you.
all I have to say.
Was there anybody else on the site visit who wants to comment? Is there anyone here from the public who would like to comment on this application? Okay, then. All right, then, planning board members, any comments or questions before we move to close the public hearing? Okay, hearing none, could I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Edna.
Thank you, Edna. Second?
Second.
Second, Delise. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? All right, Jim, we have an approval resolution, I believe.
Yes, we do. You can just give me 1 second to get to it. Complicated evening. Here we go.
Yeah, many moving
Okay.
parts.
Approval resolution for T Court Phase 2A. We're on the right phase, right? Yes, 2A, just making sure. Reaffirming the proposed action is type 2 under seeker. Based upon the review of submitted information and reports from planning board members, the CABWAC, HAPAC, and others, find the proposed work is consistent with the objectives and regulations of Chapter 125. With respect to the special use permit, asking to authorize work, I should say, asking the board to find the proposed work and intended use consistent with the general standards for special use permits set forth in 125-67. With respect to the wetlands permit, asking the board to find the proposed work and intended use consistent with the requirements for wetland permits in 120-10. And for site plan approval, asking the board to consider the proposed work and intended use to be consistent with 125-75. Based on all the application materials that have been submitted for the project.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Edna.
Thank you, Edna. Second.
Second, Sean.
Thank you, Sean. I'll pull the board. Craig,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Sean,
Aye.
Edna,
Aye.
Delise,
Aye.
Michael,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Thank you. Good
Thank
luck.
you. Good night.
All right, last up for public hearings, I appreciate them hanging in, is Grassmere House, 29 Mill Road. Site plan, special use permit, wetlands permit, and minor subdivision for a country inn 2. Good evening. I think Nick's here, probably Tom.
Yes, good evening. Good evening, Chairwoman and members of the Planning Board. Nicholas Ward Willis on behalf of the applicants Grassmere House LLC, Mensch Rhinebeck LLC, and Grassmere Mensch LLC for the subdivision wetlands permit and amendment to the previously approved site plan. I recognize it's been a long night for the board members tonight and the public who are here. So we're going to be as brief as an attorney can be, recognizing that we made a presentation to this board back in February and the materials are online. So we provided Jim with an abbreviated version of our PowerPoint presentation to go through some of the highlights of the plan. Well, just some procedural points initially. We did submit to the planning board secretary proof of publication, proof of posting, and proof of mailings to approximately 78 homes, and those are being provided. Our application was submitted circulated to the village of Rhinebeck, as well as circulated to the various involved and interested seeker agencies. So we've complied with all aspects of the planning board's procedural resolution with respect to the notification.
And just to clarify, Nick, tonight we're just updating the application. We're not anywhere close to closing a public hearing and approval, right?
That is correct, yes.
Thank
We said
you.
we'd do that in April. No, yes.
We said we do it in the future.
Yes, this is just our first presentation to the public, and we're entertaining, look forward to receiving public comments. And we do recognize this is obviously a multi-stepped phase with receiving comments from the public, from the board, from interested agencies. We've received some comments from the County Department of Planning, and we recognize there are a number of meetings and we'll have a further dialogue with the planning board and the public. So before we get into the plans, since the February 22nd planning board meeting, and to build on that, Melody, we have had several site visits with members of the planning board, HAPAC, and the Conservation Advisory Board. We appeared before the Conservation Advisory Board on March 10th and received comments. I understand they'll be providing a report. We appeared before HAPAC on March 14th and on March 17th, have exchanged letters with them and have had a productive dialogue and received a report that is entered into the record, in which, and I note HAPAC is here tonight, but HAPAC noted in their report that they concurred with the applicant's contention that the site plan revisions proposed in our application tonight represent improvements to the previously approved 2015 plan. They've requested some supplemental information that we'll be providing to them with respect to views of the architectures and views of the layouts of the buildings from certain properties that we'll provide to them and share with your board as well. And they noted, which I think is appropriate, that the new guest accommodations, it should be noted that the project is for an adaptive reuse of an historic structure within an historic landscape, not simply a restoration thereof, and that some changes to the site and existing buildings are necessary to make the project viable for the applicant, as well as function for the intended hospitality use. And we had a very good dialogue with HAPAC as sort of recognizing those two objectives here, the adaptive reuse while preserving the historic buildings. In addition, we have spoken with Chief McGuire of the Hillside Fire Department, and he said the Board of Commissioners had met and reviewed our project and that they had no comments or concerns, but we are reviewing the plan specifically with Chief McGuire and going through a fire truck circulation plan. And we'll look to report back at your April meeting and request that they provide you with their written comments so that you're hearing it from them as well as from us. Dutchess County Department of Planning provided you with their comment and review letter noting that this is a matter of local concern and offering you some comments consistent with what we've had in our discussions with your various board staff and board members. We also had a meeting with the New York State Department of Transportation in early March regarding both the Route 9 improvements that's going to be discussed tonight, as well as the work in the right of way of Route 9 for the infrastructure improvements that the applicant will be providing to the Village of Rhinebeck water system. And we've provided an overview of that. And when we submit our next application submission on April 4th, we'll go into some more detail. We've also had productive meetings with the Land Trust regarding our subdivision proposal and the conservation easement, and also the applicant's offer to impose a conservation easement over an additional 28 acres of land. And we have a meeting of the minds with respect to the scope of that agreement and where the access road will be over the conservation easement to access the wastewater treatment system facility. And we'll be providing details of that in our next submission, and hopefully just a letter from the Land Trust confirming what I've just told you as well. We've also have received public comments from residents that the Planning Board Secretary has forwarded to us, which we responded to in advance of tonight's meeting, including, for example, comments from Ms. Coates, who is the neighbor of the property along Route 9, who had made a request for some change to be installed. I know Tom LaRue on behalf of Soho had an email exchange with her, and we're certainly understand her concern and are agreeable to installing those changes. And Ms. Toomey from opposite Daz Lane on Mill Road had some clarification questions regarding our project, which we answered, as well as Ms. Kane up on Mill Road at 38 Mill Road, who just wanted confirmation that our access off of Mill Road is going to be for emergency access only and not part of the guest experience or vehicular access, which we confirmed to her. I understand she was satisfied with that response. But should today any of those be on the call tonight, I'm sure they'll provide you with their comments. So we've been quite busy since your February meeting and trying to answer questions and move this project along. So without further ado, let me go through the brief presentation we have before you tonight. Just on the screen is myself and Tom LaRue, who the project manager for Soho, who will be presenting tonight. We have John Montaigne, our planning consultant from GPI, and Paul Taylor, our architect from Stonehill Taylor, to answer any questions should they arise tonight. If we can go to the next slide, just a summary of our application. It's an amendment to the approved 2015 site plan. So we're just, as I like to say, moving around the pieces on the chessboard while respecting what was previously reviewed and approved as part of the special use permit and the secret process that this board undertook back in 2013 and going up to 2019, up until when the chairman at the time signed the site plan in 2020. We're proposing a minor subdivision to create a 250-acre parcel for the operation of the country Inn 2. We're seeking reapproval of the previously approved wetlands permit with some minor amendments due to us moving some of those pieces around on the chessboard. And the board also has to undergo its obligation under secret to make findings as to whether the determination of significance and then secret findings, as well as do your local waterfront revitalization plan consistency review. Jim, if we can go to the next slide. What you'll see here is the members of the public and the board may recall there was a proposal in 2020 made, and that has been withdrawn. The proposal to the lake and the fields at the front, that's not what this proposal is. We're here with a 2022 plan that respects what was approved in 2015. And if we go to the next slide, Jim, I prepared a summary of some of the differences between the 2022 amendment with the 2015 approved site plan. Changes that we think are beneficial to both the project, the board, and the public's concerns that were expressed over the years. So number one is discontinuance of vehicular access at Mill Road. Mill Road is going to have the access point will have a chain across it. It will be for emergency access. And we're going to be relying upon the restored historic southern entrance along Route 9 at the main access point for the guests where they'll arrive on site, park and leave their vehicles. Guest vehicles will not go any further onto the site other than the southern parking lot. And then the eastern entrance on Route 9 will be reserved for staff and services. Another change is the relocation of the parking areas away from the Manor House where it was previously approved. So the Manor House does not have the asphalt and macadam and parking of cars by it. We're relocating the maintenance building from the area north of the Manor House to the eastern entrance off Route 9. So it's not intruding into the view shed of the Manor House. Per SHPO, another relocation of previously approved 17 lawn accommodations, as you'll see on the plans. We're moving those out of the view shed. SHPO had expressed a concern about them. We're respecting that view shed in the comment. We're constructing a wastewater treatment system on the western portion of the site, which we believe is an upgrade on the previously approved on-site septic systems. And then in the southern parking lot area, change from a 2015 approved plan is we're constructing a guest reception area in a building located at the southern entrance. If we go to the next slide, Jim, what I put up on here is just a copy of the 2015 approved plan. And if you can, Jim, with your cursor, just circle where the outside the, let's go with the Manor House as our main area of orientation. You'll notice to the west on the left side of the Manor House is a line of parking that was proposed. We've eliminated that. Continuing to the right to the east, you'll see there's a large parking lot and a maintenance building that was proposed. We've eliminated that. When you go to the barn area, you'll see there's a large amount of parking in the barn area. We've eliminated that as well. And if we go to the next slide, Jim, what we've done here is we've provided a comparison plan. In red is what was approved in 2015, and in black is what we've proposed on the project. In fairness, this does not disclose the southern parking lot. That's obviously new. That was not proposed as part of the 2015 plan, but it was approved in the prior secret studies. And one of your environmental finding statements talks about the southern parking lot. So it's different from 2015, but the southern parking lot was previously examined. So the red, as you'll see, shows you what we've relocated. And you'll see along the western lawn, those 17 cottages have been relocated to come out of the view shed. And Jim, if we go to the second slide, the next slide, I'm going to turn it over now to the Soho project manager, Tom LaRue, who's going to walk you through the Grassmere House amended site plan. Tom?
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for giving the chance to kind of talk through the plan. I will be brief and hopefully briefer than Nick. So what you have in front of us, like Nick described, is the amended site plan, which is an amendment to the 2015 plan. I'll go through this at a very high level, but at a high level, it's an adaptive reuse of the 3 existing buildings that are on the property, as well as ultimately giving the property new life with the addition of new, more contemporary buildings as we move towards the future. So ultimately, this plan basically outlines the components of the project. The first being the adaptive reuse of the existing manor house, which basically we will fully restore in its current condition and ultimately convert the second and third floor to 12 guest rooms. The woodland accommodations, which is just the north of the upper pond there. There'd be 4 buildings there, 2 2-bedrooms and 2 3-bedrooms for a total of 10 bedrooms. We have the existing barn complex right in the middle of the sheet labeled number 3. That is the existing stone barn, the existing carriage house, and the remnants of a historic stone wall that juts out to the south of the stone barn. So what we're basically proposing there is a conversion, structural upgrade of the existing barn and a conversion of those barns to essentially restaurants, food and beverage outlets. 4 towards the south, we'll get into this on the next slide a little bit more, but ultimately this is a new southern entrance, which is actually respecting the historic southern entrance that has since been overgrown. 5 to the north of that is a new northern entrance and back of house building where we propose the staff entrance, staff parking, and basically the back of house hub for the property. Number 6 is the new construction, a new spa building located on the grounds of the manor house. And then the 17 buildings that Nick alluded to that jut out to the west of the manor house, 17 new buildings, 26 total bedrooms within those 17 buildings, varying in kind of style and size and shape as it fits to the existing topography. If you go to the next slide. So this just outlines, like Nick had alluded to earlier, the 2 main entrances to the site, both of which are off of Route 9, none of which will come off of Mill Road. So the northern entrance, for those of the members of the public that have driven by, we did kind of activate this and upgrade the existing curb cut late last year to kind of open up the view shed and establish the first 20 feet of that road. We're basically going through the same process right now with DOT for the southern entrance. And as we kind of looked at this property and kind of looked at the history of everything, spent some time at the Historical Society as well as walking the site, we actually discovered the remnants of old stone walls that was down at the southern entrance, and that kind of ultimately led us to want to restore that southern entrance and make that the main access point for the property. So 2 new entrances, both off of Route 9, no access off of Mill Road with the exception of walking or biking paths. If you go to the next slide. This will just give you some of the geometry of that new entrance. So it is proposed to be directly across from an existing commercial driveway. I believe it's the land surveyor or title company across the street. To the left is just a photo. It's not the exact stone walls that exist down there, but they are historic photos from the early, I think this is 1930, giving you an idea of once we reconstruct those walls of what the southern entrance will ultimately look like. Next slide. Okay, so going into kind of the existing buildings on the site, one of the main things that drove us to this site is the existing manor house. So it's existing late 1700s, approximately 17,000 square feet. We fell in love with ultimately the building and wanted to kind of save it. So working with the State Historic Preservation Office will ultimately a full restoration of the building. The outside will essentially look exactly like it is today with a full upgrade of all brick repointing. We're going to the extent of salvaging the existing windows instead of replacing them, which ultimately take the sashes out, send them off and get them refurbished. All the hardware will be upgraded and everything else. Go to the next slide. It'll just look at some existing conditions of the manor house right now. So it's sat empty for about 10 years and we're committed kind of once we go through this process, ultimately to start stabilization work on the manor house immediately as the weather has now turned. The next slide. Just give you a quick floor plan. So first floor in the basement basically remain unchanged. The slight modifications that we are making are on the second and third floor, where we propose to modify some of the existing demising walls and convert what is currently a bunch of chopped up bedrooms to make it viable. It'll have 6 bedrooms with their own separate bathrooms for each unit. So again, there's more technical documents in the official application that was submitted, but this just gives you a high level overview of what we're proposing for the manor house. You can go to the next slide. Stone barn complex, again, like I alluded to earlier, existing stone barns dating back 1901, 1903. It is a full structural retrofit of the existing structures, a full restoration of the outside of the building, and then giving new life to the inside of the building. Footprint stays exactly the same, and we're proposing basically first floor is kind of lounge seating in the full service kitchen, and then the second floor mezzanine basically stays exactly as it is with more seating upstairs. The next slide. So what you'll see on the next couple pages is basically artist renderings of kind of how we view the property. So this is basically a view coming down the drive, showing you a restoration of the existing barn from the front. And if you go to the next slide, it'll give you kind of a vision of what we're alluding to activate the southern part of the property. So historically speaking, located south of the main barn, there was a barn here in its previous life. Playing off of that barn, we basically are proposing to flip that barn upside down, and essentially that's where we're proposing the new swimming pool for the property moving forward. So this just gives you an idea of kind of how we went into the planning of the site. And if you go to the next slide, it'll give you an artist rendering of an idea of what that will look like once fully improved. And then the next slide will give another vision just from a different angle. And if you go to the next slide, we can talk about the spa program. So the spa, again, back in 2015, there was a 6,000 square foot spa approved at this exact location. We have what I would consider improved the scenario. We've designed, and if you go to the next slide, you'll see where the location is. There's currently a non-historic garage that was built, I believe, in the 70s that we plan to remove. And then if you go to the next slide, you'll see an artist rendering essentially of the proposed spa. And those aren't the exact trees that you see in that photo, but ultimately we've designed the spa essentially to work around the existing significant trees in that area, obviously respecting the grounds as much as possible. Go to the next slide. So this just gets a little bit more in detail on the total accommodation for the site. So once completed, we're proposing a total of 48 bedrooms, and this just gives you a key plan of the different accommodation types located mainly around the manor house. So 12 bedrooms in the manor house, 10 bedrooms at the woodland accommodation, 26 bedrooms at the lawn accommodation. And if you just flip through quickly the next few slides, it'll just give you an artist rendering essentially of what we envision those cabins to look like. Most of them working with the existing topography on the site, again, to limit the disturbance as much as possible.
And then this,
if you get this, yeah, this is, I'll give it to Nick to explain the lot line adjustment.
thank you, Tom. So in addition to the amended site plan, the wetlands permit, we also are applying for a minor subdivision. As you see on the screen before you, there are 4 parcels involved. And the one in pink, there's a 10-acre lot at the top that we're merging into the 510-acre portion. We're then moving the lot line to the west and the blue and the yellow properties to the left of the screen. And then we're splitting the 510 acres into 2 lots, resulting in a 250 acre in the pink. And then the light blue is the remaining 270 acres. And so that will then create the conforming 250 acre lot for the country Inn 2. If we go to the next slide, that's just the subdivision. And then that is just an overview of the document submitted. To your point, Melody, yes, this is a continued dialogue and discussion with the board. There are some issues that need to be discussed and satisfied the planning board. We've submitted what I think is a very robust application, and what's up on the screen before you is a list of those documents that have been made available to the public for their review and comment as well. And that, I believe, Jim, is the last slide and ends our presentation. And Melody, we look forward to continuing the dialogue and conversation with the board and hearing from the public tonight. Thank you.
Nick, the only thing I would ask you to add is maybe an update on your conversations with the village.
Certainly. So with respect to the village of Rhinebeck, we are proposing to provide significant increases to the water infrastructure. The property is currently served by a water line. We will be doing upgrades to that. And we are in discussions with their village engineer who has reviewed and signed off on the plans that GPI has engineered. And we are provided comments to the village attorney with respect to the agreement that the village will enter into to provide the water to us. And we anticipate that agreement being before the village board in April if their agenda permits it.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Yes.
Jim, any comments?
No, I think we've covered most of them. I do understand there are gonna be some tweaks and things here and there. The one comment I did have that I just wanted to note, that I think I did mention to you guys before, is the pool is gonna need a fence around it. And that is one thing the planning board will want to see on the plans, along with just a note stating that that fence is to New York State code. Like I say, I know there's some tweaks and things, but that is something that popped out that we'll need to make sure is on there before we're done. Other than that, Melody, I think my comments kind of stand. I know there's been a comment letter from the county planning department. Everyone can take a
So
look at.
I think there's been like maybe a bazillion site visits, but
My legs hurt.
Pardon?
My legs hurt.
Yeah, I
Joke,
think
it's a
Warren
joke, it's
is,
a joke.
is, is Warren here, still here from the HAPAC committee?
I'm
Maybe.
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
Kathy and I are both on.
I know that you have submitted comments, preliminary comments, and I ask you to share them. I think it was very productive. I think as Nick and Tom had said, you've had good conversations. So do you want to represent those?
Well, I think Nick really covered the highlights pretty well. We concluded after our several meetings with the applicants that this is indeed an improvement proposed to the 2015 plan that was approved by the planning board previously. Moving the parking for the guests all to the southern entrance where it's going to be out of sight, both from off-site and on-site, and using internal vehicles to move people around or their feet is a great idea. And having the staff parking at the new reopened northern entrance also kind of concentrates that. So all of that to get sort of private vehicles off of circulating around the site, I think is really, really good move. And serves our purpose as well as the concerns about keeping the site open, and likewise their redesign and adjustments to placements of the buildings proposed, including the spa and the guest accommodations, serve to further open up the views or maintain previously open views in all directions from both the manor house and the barn complex. So we see all of those things as very positive. They've been working, as Nick noted, with SHPO, both with respect to plans for restoration, stabilization, and restoration of the mansion, and also landscape. And so again, we and the committee very much appreciate the ongoing dialogue and cooperative working relationship we've developed with the applicants, and we look forward to getting the additional information that they've offered to generate for us, is to understand certain aspects of the plan. But overall, I think we're very encouraged and very supportive of what they're doing here.
Thank you. Kathy, anything you want to add?
I completely concur. We have found the applicants to be responsive, helpful, and the relationship is, we think as committee members, very productive.
I believe there were other members of the planning board who made site visits. Is there anyone who wants to speak up? Craig?
Oh, yeah, I saw it for the first time on this site visit, and I again was very impressed by the degree of respect and deference that this important property is being treated with. And it's currently in a state of neglect, and neglect is a very powerful source of deterioration, surpassed only by sometimes architectural vision. And I think that there's been a very important narrowing of that to what the right answer is, where this this property is being given new life, and it's paying respect to what it's witnessed over history. And it's really fantastic views that are being preserved and enhanced. And it's almost a cliche looking to the south. It's really a wonderful site. I was glad to see it in the state that it's in, and I'm eager to see what's done with it, because it seems like it's a very sensible approach.
Anyone else from the planning board who made a site visit who wants to comment?
I'm muted. Here we go. I was just going to add, Tom, one thing you didn't mention, I think you were going through it pretty quickly tonight, was that we talked about on the site visit, was the fact that you were potentially going to be adaptive reuse of some of the wood from the barn for some of the more modern lodging units, as you had mentioned. If you could just touch on that again.
Yeah, so basically the barns, like I alluded to, need a structural upgrade and ultimately new upgrades for fire code and everything else. What exists there right now is a rebuilt floor structure from the early 2000s that the current owner rebuilt. And ultimately there's two existing flooring systems, one of which is the original beams, that's the lower system, and then the upper system is the one that's actually currently working today. And basically we have to replace both of those with a concrete slab. So what we're basically proposing to do is to salvage the existing historic beams and ultimately use those for the architecture of the new the new structures. So anything that ultimately, even if like I didn't touch on the front porch of the manor house either, which has been structurally condemned. So we do have to remove the front porch, but when we remove it, we will salvage any and all material that ultimately can be reused and ultimately put the porch back in its, you know, actually its historic condition, because what's there right now is actually a reminiscence of kind of renovations over time. So yeah, it's kind of our mantra, our kind of ethos is to respect the history down to the materials of it, right? So there won't be anything that's ultimately kind of tossed out, right?
Thanks, Joe. Anybody else?
You know, tell the story is another way.
If there's no one else from the planning board, I would open it up to anyone from the public who'd like to ask questions or comment.
David, you have your hand raised?
Yes, if something that's been discussed at a prior meeting, I apologize. So it's my understanding that the staff is using the north entrance and guests are using the south entrance off of 9, which is a highway, which is good. Is there a traffic study that's looked at the effect of all of this? And has that study taken into account the other developments that are proposed coming off of Ackert Hook Road or in any other locations, and how much congestion that might or might not create and the environmental impact?
Yeah, so as part of our submission, it includes a updated traffic study. In addition, the traffic was examined at each of the various phases during the DEIS phase back in 2013 and 2014, when the boards subsequently issued the special use permit and the site plans. And the traffic that we're introducing as part of this plan is less than what was previously studied when 110 units were approved, and this is approving 48 bedrooms. But to answer the specific question, there is a traffic study that was prepared by GPI and is being reviewed by DOT as part of our application for the work in the southern end that Tom had mentioned, as well as by the town's traffic consultants.
Well, but it sounds like it hasn't, your traffic study and the traffic studies for other projects going on are not taking account of the cumulative impact on 9.
Well, I will defer
to the board.
Yep. So I'll defer to the report and for it being reviewed by the consultants, but the traffic does take into account the existing conditions out there, as well as any increase that has occurred over time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
Rachel Coates, I think you had your hand up next. I'm gonna unmute your line.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Would it be possible to just pull up the site plan again on screen now? Thanks. Appreciate that. So we live between these two entrances. In fact, it would be great to sort of, maybe you could put your cursor on our location.
Right in the middle, that light green.
Right there.
Yep. That's where we are. Great, thank you so much. So we're actually in a house that a historic building that predates Grasmere. It's known as the Steenberg Inn. And so we're surrounded on 3 sides by the project. And we've always had, you know, lovely friendly relations with the Mensch family, and we're supportive of the project. We're glad it's happening. But obviously, you know, we're right there. And our driveway actually is over a farm track down into Grasmere. And I think Nick, is it, mentioned that we've had some communication. We just want to be very, very clear. And I believe that there is clarity now that the farm track that is essentially half our driveway over this easement is not going to be used as on any kind of regular basis. So I just want to sort of like get that out there again. My understanding is that it's going to be kept reserved for emergency access only. That's correct, right, Nick?
Yep. So emergency access only, and we agreed, Rachel, we're in agreement. We'd put 2 chains up. One, I guess we could discuss where you'd ultimately want it, but one essentially past your driveway, and the other one at the intersection of, call it the shortcut road from Route 9 to where it connects to our internal property. So essentially 2 simple gate and chains with a knock box for fire department access if for some reason they decided that it was a wise choice to use this entrance, which I don't think anybody would.
That's great. Thanks very much. That really does put our minds at rest then, that it's not going to become a quick shortcut. Thank you. I have a couple of other questions. I'll try and get to them real quick. Am I looking at something that's accurate or something that's old when it says that the parking count is, the new parking count is 570 versus the old parking count 168? I was trying to get my head around 570 vehicles.
Yeah, so
every day, is that?
That is correct. The parking count is the 570 spaces in the south and the employee parking spaces. We'll work with the planning board on explaining how we came up with that traffic count, taking into account that guests arrive and leave at the same time, that we have seating at a restaurant for over 200 people, and we have about 150 employee parking spaces. And we want to make sure that we provide sufficient parking so that for events like the gala that's held in May, we have enough spaces so that people are not, there's not an issue on Route 9 or traffic coming in, and that we've adequately addressed that. And that's something that certainly we know the county has raised as a comment, and so had Jim Levy and the planning board. So it's something that we just need to work with the planning board in explaining. But factually, that is correct.
Right, I think Nick has accurately reported that those comments about the amount of parking have been raised from numerous quarters, most recently the county. So we'll be looking at that and working closely with Nick to define that more carefully. Thank you, Rachel.
Great. And lastly, is there a plan for any sort of public paths or anything like that?
No, the current plan is proposes just for the public who is staying there and users of the facility to have access to it. There are no public paths.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that could be entertained, or has it been decided definitely not? It seems like such a wonderful area to walk. I do know because, you know, I do walk there currently.
Right. So it's not part of the plans due to A, liability reasons, and B, that's not the vision, that it is a hospitality use for the public and the members who come there to be the guests. So that would be inconsistent. So it's not planned as this under this plan.
Okay.
Thank you, Rachel. Jim, is there anyone else?
Yes, I think Victor, you had your hand up next.
Hey, it's Diane Britton. Just a follow-on question about the traffic study. So with, you know, these big events that are going on, I would expect that most people are coming up from New York City. That means they're getting off the Taconic and they're coming through the village to get there. So did the traffic study include traffic coming on streets like South Street in order to get to the facility?
So that's a comment that we'll certainly look at and address. I can't give you that answer at this time.
Thank you.
And I guess from my perspective, I would hope that everybody's not coming from New York City and that it's a local thing that locals enjoy more so than the city, but that's obviously a subjective comment.
Thank you.
But it's a members facility, right? It's not like
We
anybody
offer
can go there.
It's a membership
Right.
component, but the 48 guest rooms that are on property would be open to the public.
Jim, next.
Okay, great. Jeff, I think you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I understand there's an entrance to the facility that's on Mill Street, Mill Road, that won't be used. Is that correct?
That is correct. The Mill Road entrance will only be used for emergency access, and we'll have a chain across it.
And would that be a route that anyone staying there might take to walk into the village or take a bicycle into the village?
That's certainly the potential that would occur, yes.
Okay, where you were just running the mouse pointer, is that the route that goes to the
Yes.
Mill Street entrance?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then just north of, well, up to the top of the drawing there, I guess, is the boundary of the natural graveyard. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so the only,
Graveyard to the graveyard to the left, no, not to the north.
Yes. It's correct.
uh,
The graveyard's to the left.
the natural graveyard.
Yes.
The natural graveyard is on this side of Mill.
You go past the Mill Road entrance to this property, you get to the cemetery and the natural graveyard.
Okay, so I see. So the graveyard is closer to the avenue with the cottages on it.
It's to the west.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Hey, and one more hand raise. My pronounced name, Pinar.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I'm actually, it's Simon Gilhooly, her husband. So we live very close to what will be the, I guess, the eastern entrance, the servants entrance. So I have a couple of questions about that. First of all, has there been any, I realize there's been a traffic impact study. Has there been any study as to the kind of environmental impact in terms of light and noise that having that service entrance in what is essentially going to be a very close proximity to a residential area is going to be? And is there any kind of indication that the traffic, I mean, is this service entrance going to be used throughout the night, or is this just going to be during business hours? And kind of related to that, and maybe following up on the last comment, is there going to be any kind of, you've done a traffic survey for vehicles, is there any vision about kind of facilitating pedestrian and bicycle traffic from that entrance to the village? That's already, in my opinion, a pretty dangerous part of the road. It's also part of the road that lacks kind of any barriers or sidewalk for people walking backwards and forwards. And I wonder if that has been considered at all. Thank you.
Thank you. So the comments are noted. I don't have answers to those tonight, but we'll certainly work with those and understand some of those involve operational questions that I'm just not suited at this time to respond to, but we've noted the questions.
Jim?
Well, that's it, Melody. I don't, unless anyone else has a comment or question, you can raise your hand on the screen. Not seeing anything.
Rachel, is that an old hand? No, no, Craig's got a hand. Okay, Craig, go ahead. Nope, he's not.
No, I just turned my screen back on, sorry.
Okay. Tom, the only thing I think I would circle back to you in regards to the last question is maybe you want to clarify a little more clearly who will be parking in that service area parking lot and kind of the flow of traffic going in and out there, because I don't think it's constant. That's not my understanding. It's more for employees and people coming in for
Yeah,
shifts.
it's employees. Yeah, it's employees and service vehicles, right? So I can't sit here today and say we have 2 shifts, 3 shifts, but I'd imagine it's 3. So the morning shift would probably be the busiest shift. When people come in, they park their car for their 8, 9, 10, 12-hour shift and ultimately leave when they're done. As well as for service vehicles, filling propane tanks, servicing grease traps, et cetera, that would be the main access point. And that's also the proposed access point. We do plan to close off Mill Road rather in short order. And ultimately that would be the main access point during construction as well. So to limit any use of Mill Road.
Okay, anyone else from the public? If there's nothing else, I think we're at the point where we can have a motion to continue the public hearing. We've received a lot of new information in the last month, and I anticipate a lot more in the month to come ahead. So if there's nothing else, could I have a motion to continue the public hearing until, is it still April 18th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your new information. We'll see you in a month.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Good night.
Emery. Thanks, Emery.
All right. Um, We have one last piece of business to take up tonight, and that's a time extension, excuse me, for Nick and Irene Buzzell. Jim, do you want to bring us up to date on that?
I can do that. I can bring the plan up if you want me to go and find it. Might take too much time, so I will just, I think, read it unless everyone wants to see it. So Buzzell came in for a conventional subdivision requiring site plan special use permit several months ago and received approval from the planning board on October 18th, 2021. The approval for them for that is about to expire. So they came in asking the planning board if they would provide a 6-month extension, which is permitted by the code to allow them to satisfy all of the submission requirements that they need to do moving forward. Pretty standard thing. I don't think it's an issue. I'd ask for approval, but if anyone wants to see the site plan, I have it open somewhere here. I can pull it up.
Who wants to see the site plan? Okay, there. Could I have a motion to, what is it?
So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Thank you all. I know it was a long meeting, a lot of stuff going on. I appreciate your attention and I appreciate your support. So could I have a motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
moved, Edna.
Thanks, Edna. Second,
Second.
second, Craig. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Hey,
Was that Sean? Oh, Sean, you're a real jokester. Okay, Sean votes no. He wants to stay on. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Good night, everyone. Thank you.